That's not good. What? I'm live? Oh, why, hello, hello, hello. Welcome to today's live broadcast coming to you from Los Angeles, California. I'm Anie, creator and inventor of the Jewel Tool Polishing Machine. And on today's show, I'm excited to announce that we have an amazing guest on today's show. I'm going to wait till y'all trickle in so I can tell you guys who the guest is. Everyone's waiting to go live. So today is an exciting day. We have a guest on today's show, and I'm excited for today's show. So welcome everybody who's trickling on in. Hello, hello. Hey Elaine. Maya. Hey Maya. Just talking to you. Melody, you too. And hello, Facebook user. I don't know who you are, but that's all I can see. So welcome, welcome, welcome. So I am waiting for our guest to. Oh, he's there. Oh, there you go. Let's just keep waiting. All right, you guys. Hey, 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 Bonnie. So we have an exciting guest on today's show. We have the one and only amazing enamelist and designer and everything in between. The Ricky Frank is in the house, and I see everyone trickling on in. I'm so excited. So I see you guys all popping in. So without further ado, here it is. Here he is, live and in person, the amazing Ricky Frank. Woo! Congratulations for being here. Welcome, 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 Ricky.
Thanks for having me.
Yay. So all of you guys who don't know who Ricky Frank is, I don't know if you don't know him, you must be living under a rock because he's an amazing enamelist, teacher, instructor, like engineer. Like this guy's mind is just blows my mind. Sometimes I call him the professor, you guys. So I am excited to welcome Ricky Frank on the show. So take it away, Ricky. What are you going to show us on today's show? We got a lot of people who've tuned in so far.
Okay, well, first of all, I just want to tell you, I learned something about being a host the other day watching one of your live show, because you have such a way of imparting information and not taking yourself too seriously. It's really a great blend. And what you did, what you said was you were all excited and you were talking about what an exclusive episode it's going to be. And then you didn't know what the exclusive was. And you went, it's me. It's me. And it was so perfect. It was so wonderful.
Thank you, Ricky. Well, you know, our shows are designed to teach, be informative, and yet lighthearted fun, you know? And I know you share this with me, Ricky. So
I do, but I do have a tendency to take myself too seriously, and it's not my strength, though it helps me. So I have to keep thinking about you now while I'm doing this today.
Yeah, no worries, Ricky. We love you though, just the way you are. Don't worry. I'll be the humor.
Okay.
You do you.
A comedian I never would have been. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do today. And if we can, it's easier for me when I can see people, but obviously I can't. And so if people make comments that Yarrow can feed to me, one thing I'm curious about is there may be some people that want to know about enameling, some people that want to know about using the jewel tool for enamel if they don't have one, and there may be some people that want to maybe pick my brain a little bit about the tricks and tips.
Absolutely,
I've done thousands of pieces, thousands of enamels with the jewel tool ever since I got it. I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. So
wow,
I can address questions and kind of, I don't have, I have a script, but I always go off script. So
welcome to my world. You'll fit in just fine, Ricky, and I know you will.
Okay,
everyone is saying hello, Ricky. They're all excited to see you and can't wait to see how to work with enamels. He's gonna. So Ricky Ricky teaches classes, especially during COVID. He's been doing online Zoom classes, and I hear they're fantastic. So I wanted him to give us like a little window into kind of what he teaches, and just
Yeah,
get to know Ricky. He's lovely. He's a great teacher. And but one thing I like about him is he's very detail oriented. Will tell you exactly, and he has patience of a god, I swear, you guys. So if you want to learn, he's a great teacher. I would recommend him.
I have. There'd be people that say I don't have patience.
Now,
Um,
well, you know what?
it's
Listen,
okay, but that's okay. Everyone's different.
yeah, no,
So
yes, everyone's different, but
everyone's
no,
different.
sometimes people test your patience. Even I, who have patience too, Ricky. So
So
yeah, and
I'm going to give you a little bit about my background because that kind of informs the way I do things in my studio and when I teach. So I grew up as an athlete. I played soccer and volleyball. When I got out of college, I didn't know what to do with my life. I pulled out an old copper enameling kit from the basement. I had all these little hobbies, but I wasn't an artist. My only experience with, quote unquote art was a set of oil paints I had in elementary school, and I made a painting. My first painting was
wow.
a painting of my younger sister from a photo. My brother laughed, my sister cried, my mother said, "Put it away." And and I did. So I had no interest in art at all. Didn't like going to museums, even though we lived near New York City. And I wasn't big enough to be a professional athlete. And so I went off to college, studied psychology so I could figure out something that I could manage to get through a major and not be totally bored. And I figured at least it would teach me how to learn. So I studied a lot of educational psychology, not really
Yes.
knowing why I was doing that, other than at least I was going to improve myself. And I got out of college and pulled out this little hobby kiln that I had, a little trinket kiln. And I'd done it maybe for 2 weeks in elementary school and at summer camp. And it was a lot of fun. And I was at a time when this was 1976, and I was into the beginnings of the singer songwriters like James Taylor and Neil Young. And I wanted to express myself, but I had no artistic skills or what I thought were talents. And I tried to teach myself how to play the guitar, and I cut my finger cutting up a pineapple. And so luckily that didn't go too far. But I like making enamels. I love sifting the color on the copper and playing. And I made everybody Christmas presents, everyone in my family. And they must have thought I was nuts. And then I saw someone's cloisonne work that just blew me away. It was a couple named Gail and Howard Silverblatt out of South Florida. And I'd never seen anybody's enamel. And I couldn't believe how beautiful it could look. They do cloisonne, very small. I couldn't believe how beautiful something could be made using enamel with the same stuff I was, making crap with in the little laundry room that I was working in. And so I decided one day I'm going to make something not as good as them, but that I love as much as I love theirs. And there's a difference there. I knew I wanted to make my own work. I didn't want to copy theirs, though I kind of did a little bit in the beginning, because that's pretty normal when you don't know what you're doing and you're not an artist. But luckily, I got past that. And so I started teaching myself, and I got a class or two in New York City. You moved back. I was living in Atlanta at the time, moved back to New York. I was a part-time soccer coach at my old high school, and I was setting up a basement studio in my parents' house. And I was trying to figure out, who am I? Am I, it's like I got to get a job someday. And I didn't know, am I going to be an artist? Am I going to be a coach? And they seem so different because, one is very right-brained as an artist, and flexible and loose, and the coaching is more my way or the highway, and very specific types of goals. And I couldn't figure out that how can I succeed if I can't choose? And I knew that if you have to choose something, you have to be committed to get good at it. And I wanted to get good at something. And so for several years I did both. I coached soccer. I improved my skills as a soccer coach. I improved my skills as an enamelist. I took lots of, like a painting class and a drawing class, and I sucked at everything. I dreaded going into life drawing classes. There was a nude model, and I liked that part, but of course, I was kind of uncomfortable. But I hated knowing the teacher was going to walk around and see this mess on my big manila paper canvas. I didn't know what I was doing, and so I really struggled artistically. And luckily, enameling, when you do it well, and I did learn how to do it well technically in the beginning. It's just it's why kings make their stuff out of it, their jewelry, because it's so magical. And so I had that going for me. So people liked it, but I knew something was missing. I didn't know what it was. And I hit a wall, and I'm thinking, there's no way I can make a living as a jewelry artist. So I decided I need to retire and figure out how to combine the art and the coaching. And I took a friend of mine took me to a group visualization, and we all closed our eyes, and the leader, the woman, was having us do deep breathing and imagine running through the woods or our favorite place or something. And I had this amazing epiphany that this is how to combine the creativity with the coaching, because I could visualize something and learn it. And so I realized that is what I wanted to do. I wanted to, and what I realized was there's such a thing as sports psychology. It was a whole field. It probably wasn't even known about when I was in college, and no one talked about it. And it was just becoming well known. And so I decided I'm going to be a sports psychologist for kids, teach them to be creative, teach them to have
Wow.
self-esteem and have confidence. And so I made a list of, I love lists, and I make my students make lists all the time. I made a list of everything that I wanted to study. It was like sports psychology and martial arts and hypnosis and relaxation therapy and Gestalt art therapy and play and all these different things combining art and sport. And I sent it off to like maybe 20 different graduate programs around the country. And I got a letter back from one. It was West Georgia College. They were 1 hour away in the boonies of West Georgia.
Wow.
And they said, yeah, you can do that here. Wow, who would have thunk? And it turned out that the chairman of the psychology department was a man named Mike Ahrens, and Mike was the protege of a man named Abraham Maslow. Abraham Maslow was the father of humanistic psychology. So when we think about flow and peak performance, he's the guy that started this whole thing. And Mike's his specialty in the department was creativity. So I'm thinking I'm going off and learning how to become a sports psychology. Well, this is kind of like the creative process. You do something to start, but you don't need to know where you're going to go. And if you can trust the process, you get somewhere that you may never even have pictured. And that's where I am today.
100%.
What I do now is I take what I wanted to do with kids in sports, I'm doing with adult students that are mainly finding a new career in life or a new retirement or a new way to think because they've thought a certain way. They've been a CPA or they've been a nurse or a caretaker. They want to figure out, maybe you guys are like this, you want to figure out how I can express myself, or what do I even want to express, and how do I do it?
Love it.
And this is what I did in graduate school. I ended up changing from, even though I studied the sports psychology, because peak performance is very similar to creativity. As an athlete, a peak performer has a very specific goal, but they're doing the same things. They have a skill set. They're challenging themselves. They're in the present. They're letting go, but there's a specific goal. Creativity is the same way, except that you're also letting go of the goal. So we're doing the same stuff. And so what I'm teaching my students to do, well, what I've taught myself in graduate school was to begin to do that. Because when I was in graduate school, I realized the wall that I had hit was I wasn't aware of my feelings. And so how can you express yourself as an artist if you don't even know what you feel? So I had the combination of a white man in American society with no clue about their feelings, and coming from a family who never talked about their feelings. So I had a double whammy there. Yeah. And it's still a challenge for me. And I see my students, it's a challenge for a lot of adults. Our feelings are weaned off of us. And especially if you're in a job, you can't just break down in tears all the time or just start jumping up and laughing in the
Yeah.
middle of being a professional.
Yeah.
You've got to,
Yeah. You're focused on raising kids,
yeah. And as an athlete, I learned that I had to be cool and not be distracted by losing something or winning a battle, losing a battle, having an opponent trash talk me, whatever. I had to be focused and shut down to focus and get that goal. But that doesn't work so well with creativity
Wow.
or expression. Um, so I've had to teach
That's
myself over 40 years how to make that change.
that's
You
wow.
got a question, Ani, or I'll just ramble on?
No, no, no. Yeah, this is why I call him like the professor. Did you guys kind of get an idea? He's very structured, but every word you have to hold on to and just take. You just got to take it in because he's got so much to offer. And I know you're, doing like this coaching where you want to really kind of bring out that creativity in people. And I know you'll talk about that a little bit. So I know they want to see. My people like to see things. So,
Okay, I'm going to
so
show
just
you.
so you know,
Let's just start with.
and they're very grateful that you're here. Everyone is saying how they've taken classes with you, how amazing you are. Those are all the. And one says, "Where were you when she went to school?" So a lot of people are applauding you.
Okay, so
Okay.
so here's a couple things I'm going to show you. One is just a couple of some finished pieces.
Wow.
So I like to play with color just to play, and I love to play with story. And as I said, I started to get in touch with my feelings and my story, and that celebratory inner child of mine who tries to find their happy dance but doesn't always succeed. And so, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to do a little demo on how I play with color, because that's really one of the things I try to do with my students is teach them how to play. And then I'm going to show you how I use the Jewel tool to how to grind and polish. And at the same time, what I'm going to do is kind of show you how I take what I just talked about in terms of the peak performance and the creativity and how I approach grinding and polishing. Because what I try to do is go beyond here's how I do something. I think about if I start with A, here's the how to, and then I get to Z, and that's the finished product that I love. There's a big gap in between there. There's changes. The material's changing, the tools are changing, I'm changing, the ideas are changing. And so it's that relationship that I'm becoming a part of
Wow.
as I'm making. And I find that's what students are missing in their education. They are learning techniques and they have an idea based on some artwork they've seen that they love, what they want to make, but they don't know how to go from A to Z. So my goal is to help people learn to teach themselves how to go from A to Z.
Beautiful.
So that's what I'm going to do today. So I think I'll start off just with the enameling, and I'm going to start with a piece. Let's go ahead. I've got a piece of copper with some opaque white enamel on it. So enameling is basically melting glass on metal. And I like working on copper when I play because there's less preciousness and I don't worry about ruining things. And one of the exercises I do with my students is to try to get them to make a bad piece. Because I always find that if I try to make a bad piece, I can't fail because I'm really good at making bad stuff. Going back to the painting of my sister. So if we give ourselves permission to make bad stuff, then we can start without worrying about failing. And the goal isn't to make the bad. The goal is to start by giving myself permission to make the bad. So I'm just going to show you a little bit about cloisonne, a little bit about enameling, a little bit about firing. So I'm just going to take a wire. This is like a little silver ribbon. I'm not going to get into the details, like what color am I using and what size of the wire. That's all little details that aren't that important right now. And the answer is always it depends anyway. So it doesn't really matter what I'm using. So I'm just going to bend a little wire. And I like making one wire cloisonnes because then I end up thinking more about the color that I'm going to put in than spending tons of time bending wires. Because I'm much more interested in the color than the lines.
Mm,
And this piece
very
has got
nice.
a little bit of a dome. And so I'm kind of shaping that wire by putting fingers on either end and pulling it up so that domes it slightly. And normally in a cloisonne piece, what we do is we bend wires, we adhere it to the enamel background, and with heat, we melt this, or we heat the piece, melt the enamel, the wire sticks, and then we build up color layers. And I think of that as layer architecture. So I've got floors and different, well, maybe like a basement and a living room and an attic. And these are my different layers of color. So by mixing up the different floors, I get all kinds of um, different looks. And what I love is light in my pieces. So this piece it started with an opaque white, just like this. I had gold and silver foils that reflect light. I had a wire that I put through a corrugating mill right there. I painted colors over some of the foils. And then I decided I want a little bit more crisp edges. So I took some short wires and fired that over some of the foils in color. I got a little crisp edge around the sun there, some little cloud shapes, and I started building up different types of enamel. Then I built up layers of flux, which in enameling is colorless enamel. It's not like your flux in metalwork. And so I built up the layers until it was as high as the wire. And then that's where we come into using some kind of media to grind and polish. And that's what I love using the jewel tool for.
Okay,
So,
quick question. They want
sure,
to know what gauge wire you work on.
whatever I want.
I love you.
So that's why I'm going to tell you that it depends. I mean, I'm being a wise ass, I know.
I'm
So,
like that.
okay, but it does depend. If I want a thicker wire, okay, so let's look at this. See that line right there? That shows up because there's dark enamel here and dark enamel on the other side. There's
Uh-huh.
contrast. If I had a thicker gauge wire, here are two things that would happen. One, it would be harder to bend the wire.
Mm-hmm.
Two, it would show up more as a wider line. So if I want to see it more, I can think about what's next to it, or I can think about how thick is that wire, the wider the gauge.
Uh-huh.
So I'm also assuming the question is about how tall is the wire or how wide is the wire. So, the wire that I usually use is, I think it's around 38 gauge. I measure it in millimeters. No, 1007 inch. So it's usually 0.004
Point zero zero four. Got it.
4,007 inch.
Got it.
But I use thinner and I use thicker. Again, it depends
So-
what I want to do. So here, you see this wire is down below the surface, and this one's not. This is right at the surface. This
Ah,
is a
okay.
shorter
So you
wire.
have them at different heights, different
Yeah.
levels.
So the class I'm creating right now for March is called Creative Cloisonne. And it's creative partly because we start exploring different types of wire in our pieces.
Wow,
Instead
that's
of using,
beautiful.
instead of using our traditional approach, we're learning to ask questions about wire.
Okay, do they want to know real quick?
Yeah.
Does it matter what gauge the base is?
Yeah,
The blade.
everything matters. So again, the answer is it depends. So one of the things about enameling is you're being a scientist because you're combining glass with metal and heat. So what you're doing is the glass is changing, the metal's changing, and because there's a bond, you have to take different variables into consideration. So that's why it depends. So for instance, all three of these pieces here are going to have different amounts of enamel and metal expanding and contracting when they're heating.
Uh-huh.
And then they're cooling. But there's a bond between the glass and the metal. So something, when they've changed, there's a bond that's occurred and there's a stress between the glass and the metal. So depending on the size, depending on the shape, depending on how much enamel is on the pieces, those will all be factors in how thick your metal is.
Mm.
So whereas some books or teachers will say, use this thickness, that is correct for the piece that they're making for the result that they want.
Mm.
It's the same thing as if we were looking at, hold on, I'm going to grab something here. It's the same thing as looking at two discs and asking myself, which one do I use? Well, it depends. Partly it depends on how worn this is, because a worn fine disc, a worn fine diamond is going to cut differently than a new fine diamond, right? It's like,
That's true.
so maybe a fine one becomes more like a new very fine. So you have to, these are variables. And the speed might be a factor too. And so there's not a right way. There are just outcomes for your choices. So
yeah, but real quick question.
Yes.
Okay, the question is right here. Ricky, if you're covering the whole piece with foil, do you cut a piece of foil larger than the piece or the same size?
It depends if I want to waste foil. It depends if I care. You know, if it depends what I want it to do. If I want the piece to be covered completely with foil, let me grab a piece. Okay. So how did I know this question was going to be asked? Right. So,
you could him.
Okay. So here's one. It depends. Is it going into a museum? Am I going to sell it? Is it going to be covered up with other colors where you wouldn't even see the bits of white? Or is it just a sample where I'm playing? You know, that goes back to how much do I care about the result? So that is going to be one of the variables, one of the things, what does it depend on? So one of the things that I feel like when I'm teaching my classes, it's kind of like a cult where you're trying to break their thinking and trying to get them to think a different way. And so one of the things that I'm trying to do when I'm teaching is trying to get students to let go. And what they're trying to let go of, what I want them to let go of, is to think that there's a right way, to think that there's a right answer, to think that they need to be perfect. Those are just three of the things that we try to let go of. You know, maybe along with, you know, being in control all the time or needing to know where you're headed when you start. So there's hopefully that, you know, I know that I risk people thinking I'm being flippant and giving you answers that are meant as sound like put downs, but it's the fact is it's science, and everything you do in science everything you do in life depends. You know, it's like, you know, how do I know what time to tell my daughter to come back from when with a curfew? Well, doesn't it depend on who she's going with, maybe? Or doesn't it depend on what she did last time she went out? Or maybe it depends on what the weather's like. That is such an important part of everything we do. And I know I've done demos before with the Jewel tool, and it was so frustrating for some people when I kept answering, it depends. And the challenge that we all have as artists or as individuals is figuring out what it depends on, because then we can change it. If you can't see what it depends on, like if I'm not aware that this paper is getting worn down, then I can't think of that wornness as a variable. And then I don't pay attention to it. But if I understand that this does get worn over time, See, I mean, look at it. It's kind of worn there, but I'm going to keep using it. But if I'm not aware that that's getting worn, then I'm missing something in my process.
Yeah,
So if we can learn to ask ourselves, what does it depend on? Then we can be better craftsperson. We can learn better and a better artist and achieve our goals better.
I
So
agree.
yeah,
100%.
so that's one of the challenges in using the jewel tool is knowing what does it depend on.
Okay, Mark is asking a question real quick before this comment gets buried.
Okay.
What type of silver wire do you use? Fine silver, sterling silver, what type?
Okay, I use fine silver because
Fine silver.
one, because it's soft, and two, because it doesn't oxidize, and three, because it's not as well. Yeah, basically, it's
Yeah,
soft.
got it.
It's soft and it doesn't oxidize.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Sold. Next.
All righty. Are there more questions or keep going? Why don't I keep going? Why don't I go ahead and I'm going to take a little bit of glue and take that wire that I bent for my bad cloisonne. Let's put it right there. So one of the questions I'm asking is, does it need to go from one side to the other? Well, that depends on what I want, doesn't it? What if I want to have a gap there? Then it doesn't need to go across. So that's an aesthetic. It depends.
Yes, that's all part of designing and being creative.
Right. So I'm going to
Basically,
actually,
he's basically you're basically telling everyone to explore their creative side and to have freedom in it. Basically, when he's saying it depends, he's basically saying it's your freedom to choose. You know,
yeah,
you're the artist, you're the creator. And I love that, Ricky.
you're empowered to make choices. You have power. When I was a little
Power,
kid, I read comic books and I was I was
power.
fascinated with something called Junior League of America. It was like teenagers that were superheroes with different powers. I wanted to be a superhero. And I actually had friends come over one day to hang out with me, and I showed them my superhero costume that I'd made, and I did cartwheels on the floor. They looked at me like I had lost my mind. The problem was I didn't have a superpower. So hopefully, maybe teaching creativity is a superpower, and maybe making my enamels are a superpower. Um, but everyone's got a superpower, or at least
Everyone
one.
does.
Yeah,
I
so we're
yes,
empowering ourselves to have these superpowers to make decisions, make choices.
absolutely.
So I'm going to
Yes,
take,
life and art is not binary. I agree, Don. Beautiful. Did you hear that? What Don said?
yeah, I remember Dawn from Cincinnati, I think, right, Dawn?
Don from Cincinnati. Well, welcome, you guys.
Okay, let me get on full screen so I can pay attention to what I'm doing. So I've got a little bit of glue. This is called Blue Stick. It's what I like. It's not the right way, it's one way. It's kind of like Elmer's glue with blue food coloring in it. And I think what I'm going to do also is I'm going to use some clear fire. I've got a little bit, pardon the Playboy ashtray. My dad had this in his bathroom when I was growing up, and it's my way of staying connected to him whenever I'm working.
Aw,
And so, yeah, he and my mom went to the Playboy Club when I was a little kid. So let me find my brush here. Brush has run away.
Mark says, what kind of glue? You said it, but
This is
can you
called,
repeat it?
clear fire. It burns away completely easily. It's very, there's my brush. It's very
Clear fire? Is that what you said?
clear fire, Klyrfire.
Clear fire.
And so I'm going to take some, and I think I'll put some silver foil here because silver or gold underneath the enamel, underneath transparent enamel, reflects light. And so that's one of the beauties of enameling is you get light transmitted through the colored glass. So
Love that foil underneath.
this is some
Looks
silver
gorgeous.
foil, and I'm going to leave that edge there because that's going to create an edge. So this goes back to Bonnie's question about, does it need to be covered up with foil? Well, it depends what I want. And what I want here is to have a shadow along that wire where it's darker. And it's going to be darker because there's not light being reflected from the silver. So light reflected off the white is lighter in value than the light that's reflected off of the silver. So let's do this now to Bonnie's question. We're going to let that hang off the edge and see if it matters. And I'm going to turn this a little bit. I think I'll use some gold foil because I just love pinks and reds over gold foil. And everyone's always worried. A lot of my students are worried about how much it costs. This might be, I don't know, 50 cents worth of gold foil on here. So what's wonderful with the gold foil is I hear so many students talk about how hard it is to get reds to look good. And you can be a total novice and get a beautiful red over gold foil, transparent over gold foil.
Wow, it looks so good already.
Yeah, it looks great. So if I heated this up now, that glue, the clear fire would start to bubble. You know, it's like boiling water, and the steam would raise up, and some of the foil might move. So what I want to do is dry it. So usually I do something else before I fire that. You know, I'm usually working on a lot of pieces at a time. But what I'm going to do is be impatient. So I am the impatient and the imperfect enamelist. That's what I do, and it's how I teach. It's just much more fun for me to be like that. So I'm going to bring this over. Let's change cameras, and we're going to come over here, and I'm going to torch fire this piece. And because I need to dry that, I'm going to heat it up kind of slow from a distance. So it's going to gradually heat up and have that glue burn away. And then what I'm doing is I'm going to be, my goal is for that wire and the foil to stick. What has to happen is the enamel has to melt for the wire and the foil to stick. And then my question is, how can I tell? And I have to know, is there something I can look for so that I can tell when that white enamel is melted? And because it started off as glossy, it's not going to go through firing changes that normally happen when you put fresh enamel on a piece. So what I'm going to look for is that little bit of blue stick glue up there. It's going to turn from black. It may actually catch fire, but it's going to start to burn away, and it's going to go from black to brown to yellow to clear. And when it's clear, I know through experience that the amount of heat required to get it to go clear, or actually literally burn away, is the same amount of heat required for the white enamel to melt, and I'll know the white enamel's melted. So I'm going to slowly heat this up, and I'll probably see that foil, bubble a little bit because I'm just not very patient here. But I think I'll heat it up a little bit, and then there we go. We can see it moving. And I just pulled the torch back. So now I'm going to heat it from beneath, because if I actually put it on the top, I'd probably blow with the torch some of that foil away, and then the flame would also discolor the white enamel. So I'm going to heat this now. And that should be good. So you can see, the copper changes color. You see around the edges, it's getting a little orangey. So I'm going to let that cool. And you can also see the white enamel turned a little bit yellow. And that's another tell. So it's like we're playing poker. We're trying to figure out when the enamel is happy enough for that foil and the wire to stick. And so I got to be able to tell when it's happy, just like I might be when I'm playing gin rummy with my wife. So we're going to let that cool. You see, it's already getting whiter. So that's one of the beauties of enameling, is it's a really quick firing process and a pretty quick cooling process. So it's not like ceramics and hot glass where you're waiting around for hours and days to get to.
Ricky, what fuel are you using?
That was acetylene.
Yeah.
I could use oxygen propane. I could use, depending on the size of the piece, I could use a butane torch. Again, the bigger the piece, the more heat's required. So the main thing is You need to be able to get your piece hot enough for the enamel to melt. It
Mm.
doesn't really matter what you do. If the enamel, well, the whole piece, if the whole piece gets hot enough for the enamel to melt, then it works.
Okay, Carol's asking, are you heating from beneath? Because it's
Yes.
just hard to see.
Yes, I'm heating from beneath because the flame would have discolored the white enamel.
Hmm.
Actually, let's take a look and see what we can see here. Look at that. That was white before.
Yeah, I see. That looks great. Yeah, and then the glue just
And the glue burns
disappeared.
away. Yep.
Yeah, beautiful.
I'm going to put that on a steel block. Let's
To cool down.
yeah, bring it over here and
Oh, looks so good.
all righty. So the next step's going to be to put some colors on, and let me just show you what I've got for my colors. I'm going to use all transparent enamels on at least on this firing. So I've ground this up. I like to grind my enamel from lumps instead of using powder, so that
Oh,
a little bigger than powder because that gives me a clear, transparent layer. It's kind of like the idea of pot of air glass. They usually sell the glass in different frit sizes depending on how clear or how cloudy you want it to be. It's the same concept. Air bubbles are getting caught in between the grains, and then you see it's like seeing white bubbles in seltzer water.
right.
It doesn't look clear. So the same thing's happening with this glass as it does the pot of air glass or the
Okay.
seltzer water. So the bigger the grains, the less air bubbles, and so the clearer it looks.
Mhm.
So I grind mine from lumps so I get clearer color. So one, so basically, do you have to do that? No, it depends. It depends what you have. It depends what you like. It depends what you want. And for me, I think about my personal aesthetic. What do I love? What I love in the world is being in the woods and watching sunlight come through the trees, or watching the sun in the clouds or bouncing off the lake in the
Oh,
winter,
yeah, beautiful.
or the depth in the water. I grew up on spending my summers in Lake George in upstate New York, where it was the third cleanest lake in the country. And you could be out in the middle of the lake and see down 30, 40 feet and watch the sunlight go through the water. And that's what I love. So I try to capture those that as I'm talking, I'm feeling the passion in my chest. It's that awe that I feel when I'm in nature with light. So I'm trying to capture that feeling of awe and light in my pieces. So my personal aesthetic is about light and depth. That's how I know what I want to do with my work because I know what I love. So that's part of our goal as an artist is to figure out what we love, not just a topic like a landscape or a flower, but what is the experience that we have when we're with that flower or when we're in that landscape or when we're with sunshine coming through the window with your cup of coffee at the table. Um, so that so you capture your feeling, and that's what makes it different than anybody else's. So my personal aesthetic is about light, color layers and light. And I often name my class color layers and light. So I'm going to take some of these colors now, and I'm just going to make a bad enamel. I'm going to take some pinks and yellows and maybe so this is something I might do if I'm like making a sketch to see what the colors look like and what's possible so that I can use what I learn when I want to make something I love. So I'm
See that?
setting,
Make something you love. Did you
yes,
hear yourself say that? I love that. Make something you love and it'll transfer into the piece.
yes, make art from your heart. So, for me, the challenge is finding my heart. But when I think about nature, it's very easy. I can just almost like I want to stop talking because I want to feel how much I love that experience of being out in the world and on the lake or in the mountains or at the beach.
That's
Uh,
right. I dance sometimes, got to feel that energy, get excited.
Yeah, if I go into that feeling, I have the feelings of being an inept white man dancing my whole life. I married a modern dancer, so um, I did try to challenge myself. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and play with some colors here and um, just see what's possible with some of the colors that I've got. And I'm using leaded enamels, but
Leaded enamels.
I've got white unleaded enamel as my base. So a lot of people can use, they say you can use, well, my feeling is everything you do, you get a result. It's not right or wrong. But sometimes leaded enamels bubble up through, um, I'm sorry, yeah, leaded enamels as a base bubble up through unleaded enamels. So I'm using the unleaded under as a base, and I'm going to put my transparent leaded colors over. And I'm
Yeah.
going to put the reds and pinks over the gold. They
You
would
guys
have,
taking notes?
hmm?
Nothing. I'm telling everyone take notes. You got some good. Someone compared you to very similar to Thomas Kincaid. He
Yeah,
painted with light in mind.
yeah, I think, I don't,
That's Myra.
yeah. So, except that enamel has actual light bouncing through the pieces because it's glass. And,
Yes, beautiful.
and because there's metal in the pieces that are acting like little mirrors. So, I'm literally painting with light. I'm not painting with imagined light. I'm painting with literal light. So I'm going to go ahead and, so I'm thinking about where I want to put the color, and I'm realizing if I'm thinking, I'm not playing. So I'm just going to start making a mess like I'm in a sandbox. And just put some stuff down, put some colors down, and
Wow,
not
looks
worry
so
about it.
good. Woo!
Now, the more I start thinking about it looking good, the more uptight I'm going to get and try to make it look good, and then I don't play. Um,
Yeah. Michael Jackson said you just have to feel it. Don't think about it.
yeah, well, don't think about it is absolutely, that's good. Feeling, how do I feel as I do this? So I'm going to talk a little bit I'm going to stop talking about the color, and I'm going to talk about a little bit of my philosophy of teaching, because I'm going to use that when I do the Jewel Tool demo. Um, but when I was in grad school, I started to study my own process and think about um, how do I move from trying to make it happen to letting it happen, which I believe was the whole concept of peak performance. And I was really mystified because my whole background was, well, if you try harder, then you get your goal. But that does there's a tipping point where that doesn't work anymore. But I didn't know what it was, and I wanted to find that out. And I
Uh,
did. I did discover it actually, and there's actually a moment where we have a surrender, where we let go of control. Um, but what I started to do was to really watch my own process and try to learn from it. And so over the years, this has probably been 35 years I've been studying about creativity and personal growth and artistic goal achievement. And what I found was that I do 8 different things when I'm being creative. I like 8 different mindsets.
God, Ricky,
And,
even that looks gorgeous. Like seriously, like we have some quick questions. Let me
yeah.
throw them your way because I know you can do it too.
Okay,
Irene
well, let me finish my thought. I'll be real
said,
quick.
okay, oh, okay,
Just save that up there. So the 8 ones are, because this is what I'm actually doing as I'm painting colors. I am observing.
yes,
I'm asking questions. I'm asking myself questions. I'm imagining. Like
mm,
if I put more green there, then I'm imagining putting the green there. That's part of my question. And then I'm responding. How will I like it if I imagine putting more green there? How will I like it if I put less green there? So I'm imagining, I'm creating a plan, I'm choosing a plan, doing action. I'm actually making a commitment, taking a step, and then I'm evaluating after I've done it. Maybe after one little step, or maybe after a whole firing, or maybe after a piece.
mm-hmm.
So these are the different skills that we use when we're trying to be creatively achieving a goal, which we're going to be doing when we grind and polish with the jewel tool.
So
So,
exciting.
so that's what that's why I want to talk about this now, because I'm going to try to explain how I do that when I do the jewel tool. It's kind of like an anal creative way to approach a task. Okay,
Love
so
it.
I'm good with questions now.
Oh, okay. So Irene said, do the leaded heat the same as the unleaded? Sounds like you're using leaded and unleaded on the same piece. That's true. He is.
No, well, the question was more about the heat, not about using the same on the same piece. That's a great question, because when I started teaching at Rio and doing some demos and making some videos for the YouTube channel, they were fine with me using my leaded colors when I taught class, but they really wanted me to use their unleaded colors with all the demos. But I didn't have a lot of experience with them. And
Mhm.
one of my cloisonne demos, I started off with a purple sky, and at the end of the demo, it was a brown sky. And that was because it became too hot over time. And it wasn't intentional at all. And so what I've learned over time is a lot of the colors, specifically reds, orange, pinks, and purples in the unleaded colors, if you get them too hot, they change more than leaded colors change. And it's easier to get them too hot because they tend to melt at lower. I don't know if they melt at lower temperatures, but they reach that tipping point where I don't like them any longer at a lower temperature than the leaded ones do.
Mhm.
That makes sense, I hope?
Yes. Yes.
So that was a good question.
Yeah. I see it. We've got one more on the
Yeah.
same topic. Are the leaded transparents more vivid than non-leaded?
I don't work a lot with unleaded, so I don't know. I remember in a class once I had a well-known glass artist in the class. It was a young Japanese student and American Japanese student, and she heard that question from another student, and just her nose went up in the air, and she rolled her eyes, and she said, "Everybody knows that leaded glass is much clearer than unleaded glass. Like for crystal." Which makes sense then, that if that is so in the glass world, then it would make sense that it's so in the enameling world too. But I don't have enough experience to say that from my experience, yes or no. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to blot this water out and fire it.
Mm-hmm.
If I heated this, the water would boil, the enamel would pop up in the air, and the enamel grains would go all over the place.
I see. Yeah, makes
And
sense.
so, just like I was saying earlier about the rules and the books and the teachers that say you have to fire a piece at a certain temperature,
Put me a
well,
little
almost all books
sample.
and teachers tell you you've got to dry your piece before you fire it. And so, I hate rules. So I am not going to do that. I'm going to fire my piece.
When he's
And
working.
actually, if I, let's change, there we go.
Oh
I'm gonna,
wow, you're gonna go for it. So you're not putting this in a kiln. You're gonna use a torch.
yeah, and I just realized that if I fire it with a torch, the heat coming up is so harsh that it will bubble. Those grains will pop up. And so normally with a torch, what I do is I preheat it to dry it. So I guess what I should do is put this in a kiln so we can see that I can fire it damp like this. So I'm going to take a second and go into my kiln room. I got another camera set up, and we'll fire that there.
Nice.
But I can't talk because the microphone's not very good there. So I'm going to pop it in the kiln. I'll come back to this mic.
No worries. I'll talk for you. That's cool, you guys. So what he's gonna do is he's gonna remove some of the moisture right now in the kiln, and then take it to fire because, of course, if there's moisture, it'll bubble and enamel goes popping. Then we make popcorn. So
Okay,
exciting.
I'm back, and I'll just leave that on so I don't have to keep changing cameras. But what I am doing is I'm melting the enamel. I'm not drying the water with the kiln. I'm just putting it directly into the kiln without drying the enamel, because the heat from the kiln is much more subtle, obviously, than the heat from the torch.
Right.
And actually, let's just.
But are you gonna do the whole thing in the kiln, or are you gonna just subtly heat
No,
it
I'm
up
going to
and
do the whole
then
thing.
fire it?
The whole thing in the kiln. So right now it's firing in the kiln. So that water evaporated probably within 3 seconds of it being in the kiln. But
Nice.
because it's a subtle heat, there's probably 4 inches between the piece and the kiln elements. The water evaporates right away. It
Like
doesn't
that.
need to be dry. But if I was doing it with a torch, that flame right onto the piece, it's going to start to bubble.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the same thing if you put a pan of water on a stove and it's close to the heat, or you lift it way up, it's going to take longer to get hot if you're holding the pan off the top of the stove. It's the
Absolutely.
same
Like the
thing.
bubbling of flux.
It's a
Okay.
principle. It's science.
We have some questions. We
Yeah.
have, are you concerned about melting your silver? Not in
Not
the
doing
kiln.
this because the enamel, my kiln's fired at 1350 right now, so it's
1350.
way below the melting point of the silver.
Okay.
If I was working now, I can have a problem now. I'm thinking about there's something called the Eutectic Bond. When you put fine silver next to copper and you heat it, if it reaches a tipping point, the fine silver touching the copper changes it from it alloys it. So the temperature of the melting temperature drops down, and so when I put a fine silver wire on a copper blank, even though I have some enamel there, the enamel can get so hot that the wire sinks in and gets close enough, changes the melting temperature, and that piece starts to then sink and melt into the copper and the enamel.
Right. Okay.
But I'm firing it really low. I'm firing in the kiln at 1350. Maybe what I'll do is maybe I'll do a demo and melt the one I just did so you can see that happen with the torch, because it's easy to do with the torch. So I'm going to go to the other camera. Let's get that back.
Do you always damp it before it goes
I
in the
blot
kiln
I blot the water with the paper towel or toilet paper.
with the paper towel or toilet paper?
I'll be
Okay.
right back. I'll be right back.
No worries. Okay. If you don't have a kiln, how long do you let it dry before torching? That's a good question. Linda asked, if you don't have a kiln, Ricky, how long do you let it dry before torching? I know it depends on how thick you put on the enamel, but
well,
a
it
rough
depends
idea.
how much water's on there, right? That would depend how much I blotted it. But before I get the flame onto, to really bring the flame onto the piece, I make sure it's dry totally, because the water I don't. Okay, so what do I want to avoid? I want to avoid the water boiling and the steam lifting the grains. So I dry it with the torch from a distance, slowly and gently, so that there won't be any boiling, and it's similar to the heat of the kiln.
Perfect. That's what I was going to suggest, but you're the pro here. So that's good. Did you understand that, you guys? He'll turn on the torch and heat it from a distance. You know what I mean? So there's not direct, so you don't start boiling the water.
But that's
like
not
a blow dryer.
That's not the right way. That's just the impatient way.
That's impatient. Well, you know what?
Yeah.
Everything is impatience these days. We want, fast everything. So
yeah. But look at that color now. Isn't that great?
That is nutso. It's so gorgeous. I knew this was going to come out pretty. I could feel it. It's just absolutely beautiful. Look at that, you guys. And I can see how the foil dances in the background, totally plays that light. Woo!
Yeah, that's the magic.
Kathy's asking, can you use any type of craft foil, Ricky?
Okay, so I'm gonna be the asshole instructor and answer it one way first, and then I'll give you the answer that is helpful.
I love that, by the way. Can I say that too?
The asshole answer? Yes.
Sometimes I can have a asshole answer.
Here's the asshole
go ahead.
Answer that I tell all my students. You can do everything. You can do anything, and everything works. What that means is you will get a result. This is the deep programming that I'm talking about of the craft cult right answer. Okay. Everything works, you will get an outcome. And you can do anything, you will get an outcome. You may like it, you may not. Okay. Because what I like may be different than what you like. So
Fair.
yeah, so there's not a right way to do anything.
But the
So
foil, like craft foil, won't melt or
it's not
distort the
silver, it's
enamel.
not silver or gold or copper. So you're going to get a different result. Like if you use gold leaf instead of gold foil, the gold leaf is so thin that when I put enamel on top of it and heat it enough for the enamel to melt, that gold leaf dissolves.
Yep.
And it just looks yucky brown or black. But if I put the gold foil on top of the enamel and don't cover it with anything and it's the last firing, then I don't have to get it so hot and the gold leaf looks beautiful.
Right.
It depends what I want.
Yeah, no, it looks gorgeous. But you can see how the gold leaf just gives you such, it's like dimension, depth. It just draws you in, I'm already mesmerized. He's got me hypnotized.
Right. Okay, so let me go grab that piece and I'll bring it in here.
So one question we keep getting is, if you don't have a kiln, sorry, Ricky, but if you don't have a kiln, how long do you let it? Oh no, we already got that. No, is there other options if you don't have a kiln? Your torch, right?
Torch.
Torch. No. Irene is asking, do you use mica in your firings?
Most of the time I don't. What does she want to know what I do with it?
Well, the mica gives you that little kind of iridescent goldish kind of look. So okay. I feel as though you get that iridescence from your gold foil.
Yeah, I'm trying to use the depth of the enamel because that's what I love is the depth. It's like snorkeling. You're immersed in the light. That's what I'm trying to capture. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm putting my nose up about mica, but to me, the mica it's kind of like a trick to get a certain effect, like a special effect. That's not the special effect I want, but it might be the one you want. But then, when do you use the mica? Do you use it earlier in the layers or on the top layer? So there's not a right way to do it. I don't use it because it's not my taste.
Okay, so he doesn't use mica because it's not his vibe. It's not his taste. However, someone is saying, Vicky, hi Vicky. Vicky's saying, hi Ricky. My gold foil turns dark when I fire it, and then when I put clear over it, it turns gold again. Why?
I don't know.
He doesn't know.
I don't know why it would turn black. I've had silver foil that oxidizes because fine silver actually does oxidize over time. I've had fine silver or silver foil or gold foil that looked black before I fired it. And then when I fired it, it looked gold or silver again. Didn't matter if I put enamel over it.
Interesting. Well,
but
as long as
I don't know why it would turn black in the kiln unless it's not pure. Okay, so here's an answer. Here's a possibility. When I work with, let's say I made some little gold granules by taking little bits of wire or sheet and cutting them up and hitting with a torch and making little balls. If I use 24 karat gold balls.
Ricky, let's see you talk.
Oh, okay.
We love to see people.
Okay, sorry.
We have a visual imprint of this piece in our head right now. But we want to see you, Ricky. You're the man.
Okay.
Aha.
All right. So if I make a 24 karat gold ball, there's no oxidation because there's no copper in the gold. It's 24 karat. It looks bright and shiny. I could put that on a layer of enamel and fire it. It would sink into the layer and it would look nice and shiny. I could put enamel over it. It's still going to look nice and shiny. That's 24 karat gold.
24 karat
gold. If I took 22 karat gold and made little balls or bought little balls and put them on a layer of enamel and fired it, what do you think happens to the 22 karat gold? It oxidizes because it's got copper in it. It does what it's supposed to do. And that's the outcome that you get when you heat 22 karat gold.
Yes.
Okay, so I would have little blackish balls on my layer of enamel. if I then put a layer of enamel over those black balls and fire it, that oxidation dissolves into the enamel. And now I have gold, clear, reflective balls in my enamel layers.
Ah, wonderful.
So that there may be something to do with the copper content in the foil that Vicky's using.
That makes sense.
That would make sense to me. I don't make gold foil, and I don't know about the differences, or
Right.
I don't know.
Vicky says she was ripped off. She thought it was 24 karat. Sorry, Vicky.
I think the woman that used to import the gold foil from Japan, I think she used to say it was 23.5 karat. But I'm not
23.5.
sure. I can actually find. Well, I'm not going to worry about it.
Oh, we've got Laura Bracken on here. Laura Bracken has been doing enameling for just about a year now. In her pieces,
I saw that piece you just showed. That was wonderful.
Yeah, did you see that? That was Laura's piece. Yeah. She's just decided to take up on enameling.
Well, I've been watching a few of her pieces online, and she's doing great. Okay, so let's see. Let's go back, and I'm going to add more color.
Yay! Oh, wow.
Okay.
So I'm going to play little airhead blonde moment. So, Vicky, you can add more color after it's been fired once. You can build on it.
Yes, you can.
Okay.
You can do anything you want. You may like the results, you may not.
That's good. That's good. We love freedom. That's what the Jewel Tool is all about, too. You can do whatever you want. Just follow the rules.
No, I don't follow the rules.
Well, no, follow the rules as far as your limits in like physics and stuff of that nature. How much you have to heat the kiln, like those kinds of rules I'm talking about. Not creative rules.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
I know, you always do. He's another sweetheart, you guys. Really, Ricky. He might sound serious at times, but whether he likes to admit it or not, he does have a sense of humor. You get the giggles out of him. He's a cool. You're a cool cat.
I'm laughing. I don't know if anyone else is. The question is, like,
Myra says, be nice to blondes. I want to be a blonde so bad, but anyways.
Oh gosh. So one of the things about layering colors is it's much easier to darken a color than to lighten it. So there's not a lighter color I can put over this and make that teal lighter. Putting a light yellow over it makes it a little yellower, but it doesn't lighten it because I still have that layer of glass that is transmitting light, but I can darken it by adding a darker color. So I'm going to put a little bit of my darker blue here. And we go back to those creative mindsets. I'm asking myself questions now. How dark do I want it to be? How much blue do I want it to be? How thick can it be? Because the thicker it is, the darker it is.
Oh, the thicker it is, the darker it is.
Well, think about a thick pane of blue glass and a thin pane of blue glass.
Right.
Which is going to let more light come through.
Absolutely. Makes sense.
Yeah. So with a light, with the flux here, this is clear enamel here. It wouldn't have mattered. I could keep adding layers of flux. It's never going to get darker. Clear glass. If I have a medium color here, as I stack it, it gets darker and darker. Even one layer of a dark color can keep the light from coming through. So I'm asking myself questions. I'm using those 8 creative mindset skills that I talked about earlier. I'm responding to what it looks like as I do it. I'm creating a plan for how I'm going to possibly put the next enamel into that blue that's right there. So how do I want this to look where the edges are meeting? And what do I remember having done before, and what results do I get when I do it different ways? What happens if I decide I want to blot some of the water out and now it doesn't move so well, but what I get now, look at that crisp line I can make. So I can have a plan for how I want to have an edge. That's going to be pretty subtle because it's light in value. And let's go ahead and just put a little bit more of the flux there. And I'm right-handed, so I've been working from this side right now. So instead of taking my brush and bringing red from here to here to put here, I'm just going to go like that and make it a little bit more ergonomic.
Wow.
And so I'm imagining now what would happen if I put more red here. Because if I don't know what it's going to look like, how do I know what to do? How do I know what to choose? And so I'm going to choose to put more red there because I want it darker there. I was about to put some there, and then I looked at it and I thought, oh, I really like that. I'm going to leave it like that. It's got like a nice little light area next to the wire.
I love it.
And I'm gonna leave that there. So that was my response. Remember the 8 creative skills. So I was responding. So now I'm looking at it. I'm asking myself, what do I like? What do I want to change? What colors do I have? What do I know? And I'm thinking about, do I want there to be more of the medium pink? Do I want to add more of the yellow? Maybe I'll put a little bit of yellow there and a little bit more yellow there. And I think I'll leave that there. And again, I'm just playing. I'm not working from a sketch. I'm not working from a painting. I'm just playing so that I can learn what I like and I can learn what's possible. So this is a learning piece. It's not making art.
Oh, you guys see how he just patted and it just absorbed that quick? That was pretty cool.
Yeah. So I'll fire this one with the torch so we can see the colors and we can watch the firing stages.
See, he even used like the paper with little kind of frayed at the ends to kind of grab that inside moisture. That was good. Love that. This is looking so good, Ricky.
Thank you. So,
I love the play on the warm colors on one side with the gold and then the cooler colors with the silver on the other. It's very, very nice.
Okay, so I'm going to fire this with the torch. And since I just blotted it, I'm going to probably the tip of the flame is going to, the tip of the torch is going to be about, maybe 2 inches away from the piece. So I don't get it too hot because I don't want that water to boil. So I'm kind of brushing the end of the flame. It's kind of bushy, and I'm moving it around the piece, hitting it from the other side, and I'm actually aiming it at the trivet. Can you see how that those colors are changing as they dry?
So you guys see he's aiming it at the trivet. You guys see that? Because you're a little close, Ricky, so they don't know exactly what angle.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to say. It's hard to say.
So that's good. I'm glad you're telling everyone. That's good.
And I'm actually aiming down onto the fire brick a little. See how?
Yeah, I can tell.
That's going to gradually or slowly heat that piece up. So now it's dry. I can tell the color. It's like wet sand or dry sand at the beach. And now I'm going to turn the flame up and heat it from below.
Okay, so he's heating it from below right now, you guys. See that?
It's going to go through firing stages. It's going to start to melt and become little balls of glass, and then the balls of glass are going to join, and there'll be a texture, and then it'll get smooth.
Wow. You guys see the transition? This is just, wow. Like, I want to start enameling. Oh, I see it. You see that transition? So cool. Wow. Look at it. It's like all orange blood red.
Yeah, I mean, there are times when you just wish you could stop it where it is. It looks so amazing. But I know it's going to look pretty cool when I'm done. So any questions while we're waiting for it to cool? This is a good time for questions.
I mean, honestly, you guys, who wants to start enameling? Like, really, this kind of, just a different way to explore, more sides of your creativity, and it just comes out so beautiful. Really, right, Myra? Myra says, this is incredible. Maya says, wow, that was fast.
I'm impatient. It's like, I want immediate gratification.
Well, you're talking to the person who needs immediate gratification.
So I'm going to go ahead and put this onto my steel block.
Dinah Snitska, right? She wants to start enameling. It's just.
Well, while this is cooling, let me tell you about my two classes.
Okay, yes, we want to know because I want to join your class. Okay.
Okay, so you can do everything with a torch if you
Ricky,
want.
let's see you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you don't need a kiln for my class. Let's see. Here we go.
Well, you're not there.
I will be in a second.
He will be.
My mouse is navigating around that fire brick.
Martina says beautiful colors.
Am I on now?
Nope.
What happened here?
Just real quick, while you do that, Mark, we answered the question between the gold foils and the gold leaf. Ricky said the gold little foil, the little tiny little foils burn out and turn into black spots. So that's why
with leaf it does.
Gold leaf. Yeah, sorry. Gold leaf. The leaf is very thin, tiny, burns, turns black, not pretty. Stick with gold leaf. Next, go ahead.
Stick with gold
foil. Sorry.
Gold leaf on the top as the last firing. Okay, so the way I teach is I find that projects are helpful to learn techniques, but they're also a crutch when you don't move beyond the techniques. So when I was learning, I learned some very, very simple, very simple projects where I wasn't trying to make art. Someone designed a very, very simple project for me to learn color gradations or some very simple things, or bending wires. And then I found that, okay, now what do I do with it? And that's where I got stuck. And that's why I retired, and that whole story from the beginning. And what I find is in the beginning of my teaching, I was trying to help students become confident and design projects, thinking if they can do the projects well and I can deconstruct the skills, then they're going to have confidence. So they became very confident in making my projects. But when they went home, they didn't know what to do, because my students, or most of my students, were not already artists. So it wasn't like a computer where you just plug and play something. You couldn't just take the project techniques and put it into your artistic sense if you didn't have an artistic sense.
True.
So what I try to do is I teach enough technique, and then I teach students, I'm going to say I don't teach them, I show them how I do something, and then I try to gently invite them to find their way, and I challenge them to learn the skills so they can figure out their way. So what I'm trying to do is to help students learn the skills to teach yourself.
Right.
Which is using those 8 creative mindset skills. So as I'm enameling, I'm asking questions. I'm observing. I am doing all that stuff. So my classes now are designed so that I show you the basic how-to, and I want you to be able to do that. But you can change things around. You don't have to make my simple little project.
Yep. That's on your website, right?
Yes.
Where they can check out the classes. Yep. Got it. Yep. RickyFrank.com. Yara put it up on the screen.
Great. And then what we do is I have a whole series of lessons where I'm teaching you the different things that I do to go from A to Z. Remember, A is I'm learning the technique, and Z, I'm making something I love. What happens? What does an artist do between A and Z? It's not one thing. So for me, what I'm doing is I'm learning how to play with the materials and the tools so that I can see what's possible and learn what I like. I'm learning to experiment so I can control variables and get a specific result when I want to.
A lot of people are saying, they can follow directions, but they just don't know how to start to be creative, So you basically, he puts the training wheels on, teaches you, and then he shows you how to work without the training wheels. So I love this.
We slowly take the training wheels off so that after we're playing an experiment, we're learning how to translate. How do you look at an image and not just look at, most of my students take this big old photo that they love, but how do we put the training wheels on that and crop it so that you can just take one little section and learn how to change that into enamel? So you're creating your own aesthetic, like I did with the layers and the light,
Mm-hmm.
but it's simple. It's you're just making one, like I did with my simple enamel there.
Yep.
It's so we're learning baby steps,
Yeah,
and
because
that's
baby steps turn into bigger steps. Bigger
exactly
steps turn into that's how you become the master, and then you start running,
yes.
So
And so
nothing happens overnight. So it's
right.
just a process, and you're a really good teacher,
Well, what's magical about this process that I'm teaching, and I haven't invented this. I've just taken all the things I've read for 40 years about creativity and peak performance, and I put them into a program that teaches me how to do it,
Mm-hmm.
so I can share that with you. And so
Lovely.
what ends up happening in the class is nobody ever makes the same piece. Nobody. And each week we're making 4, 5, 6 different pieces, but they're all exercises. So you're developing your translate muscles. You're developing
Beautiful.
your experiment muscles. You're developing your play muscles.
Yes, and to trust that feeling that you have to do something. Sometimes you have that, gut feeling you want to do something, but you kind of shut it down. But it's also to trust and have the confidence that what you're doing will turn out pretty, So you give the people confidence to
Well, and well,
continue and
also
grow.
that it will turn out pretty when it's ready to turn
Yes.
out. We're not trying to jump from A to Z. There's a lot of stuff in between A and Z. Unless I decided I just love red and all I want to learn about is red enamel, well then that really cuts down a whole lot of the A to Z because I don't need to learn about 100 other colors.
Other colors,
It
absolutely, and how
depends
they
what
play and how they work. Mhm.
depends on your taste and what your goals are.
Nice.
Okay, so how about we switch gears and go over what I would normally do with that piece is I would put, if I like it, I would start putting layers of flux on it and build it up as high as the wires.
High and build it up. Got it.
Build it up, and then it's time to grind and polish. So I've got some pieces here that are already at that stage.
Oh, nice.
So why don't I just clean my colors up for a minute? And if you want to talk about something for a second, let me clean up this little area. And for some reason, the camera that had my where I was going to put the jewel tool under is not working. So I'm going to change where I had it. So why don't you take over for a minute or two, Anie?
No
And
worries. Let me read
okay,
over the questions. Absolutely.
okay.
Yeah. So Maya, when he was torch firing, um, he was when he was firing, did you guys notice how he had the torch under the piece? He wasn't coming out over it. So the flames were not kind of folding over. I didn't see at all at any moment of that time where flames came over the enamel. He was working mainly from underneath, working, from below. He wasn't ever bringing the flames over on the enamel. That I can answer. And then, oh, we'll ask him when he comes back. Suni, I'll ask him what storage he's using for his enamels. But so do you guys see what I mean when I talk about like how he's like his brain is so analytical and thinks about every little thing? Us women, we kind of shoot from our hips sometimes. We got to improvise. We got kids. We got things going on, so we can do totally a million different things at the same time. Yeah, Myra said that too. Yes, Myra. Yes, so but he actually makes you think about what you want to create. It kind of gives you a different outlook on creativity. And it's just not based on feeling. It's a lot of asking yourself questions and kind of gauging it. And in this way, that builds confidence. You know what I mean? So I love that. And he's going to be doing like an entire coaching course on this. So that is exciting. I'm stoked about that. So he talked about it here, but just so you guys know, he's also going to be coaching on this. And this can be applied to many things. It doesn't have to be just on enamel. It could be on your metal smithing, the work that you do. I see a lot of people posting that You know, what do I do if I see someone's, creation or a picture of something and I want to kind of do something like that? I always tell people, get inspired by, other people's creations, get inspired by nature and, places you visited, and turn it into, a piece of your own. You'll always turn it into your own, translation, because that is just you. You are unique, you. And I always say, do unique things, create unique things. You won't be compared to anyone else. And, it's a one of a kind piece. So he encourages that in his coaching class. So I'm so stoked. I kind of want to jump in on that and kind of get a different kind of way of thinking a little bit. I like to challenge myself, and so I think that's a really good way. You kind of get stuck in your own habits, if you will. Do you know what I mean, you guys? And by doing this, it kind of helps you kind of look at yourself and how you're approaching things, and it'll better yourself in your your decision making on the creative level. So yeah.
Okay, so let me jump back in now.
Oh, good, you're there. Okay, I didn't
Yeah,
know I
I'm
kept
here.
talking. You could have
And
jumped in any time. I was just filling in the void.
well,
Wait.
before I forget, I want to mention that there's an easy way to learn about my enameling without registering for a whole course. Um, and I have something called the Enamel Channel, which you can link to through my website. It's enamelchannel.com, and it's like a Netflix for my enamel videos.
How
So
awesome.
you can sign up for a month and pay by the month, and it costs like maybe $12 a month, and there are probably about 300 videos on there.
Wow.
And or you can join for a year, and it's cheaper. I think it's like 108 for the year, and you get a 7-day free trial. So it's enamelchannel.com.
Enamelchannel.com. Okay, Yarrow's
Enamelchannel.com.
going to post it right now.
Yeah, and
Wow, you can
so
view your entire library is on there.
yeah,
Wow.
yes. Except that doesn't include the lessons that I'm doing with my classes.
Well, I
So
wouldn't
think
expect
of the
that.
Enamel Channel as a library of videos, and it's not step one, step two, step three, where my classes are more designed to help you achieve specific goals.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're really good in those classes. I mean, everybody I know who has taken a class with you just loves your class. Every single person I've met, and I've met tons of people that have taken classes with you
Thank
because they all got a jewel tool. No kidding.
you.
Oh, Yarrow posted the links, you guys, to both his classes and the library where you the enamel channel.
Super. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit before I begin about, because I can't shut myself up most of the time. So what I'm going to do is I got some notes here. So when I'm working with enamel, I'm doing two different things. I'm grinding and I'm polishing.
Yes.
And it's important. These are two different goals. So it depends, has different variables because I have different end results. So when I'm grinding, I'm doing several different things. I'm changing the amount of enamel on the piece because I'm removing some of it.
Yes.
I'm changing the shape of the enamel. There are highs and there are lows. There may be areas where I'm tapering them down on the edge. So
Right.
the shape is changing, and I'm following the shape of my piece depending on how domed it is. I'm also changing how deep it is, the depth of the layers, because I'm removing some from the top.
Mm-hmm.
I'm changing how even it is, usually trying to make it even, but your goal could have it to be an uneven enamel. There's not a right or wrong. And
Correct.
I'm also, as I'm doing it, it's changing how matte or shiny it is, because as the media, as the diamond hits the enamel, it makes it matte. So it's changing from shiny to matte. So those are the things I'm thinking about when I'm grinding. And when I'm polishing, the goals are different. The goals for me are, how does the light reflect off the surface? How am I able to see through the surface to what's underneath the surface? How
Mm.
can I go, how can I create a surface so that I'm not stuck with glare on the top?
Right.
Um, and so how can I let light comes through the layers and through the surface? So
Yeah, like this.
that's what my polishing is doing.
This
So
is your piece.
right.
He's like, right,
So
whatever.
and when you look at that piece, there are different types of light. On the bottom right hand corner, that concave cell, there's a lot of transparent enamel, so there's a lot of light. On the opposite side of that, it's opaque enamel with maybe some clear over it, so the light's different. So that's one of those examples of painting with light. But if I have scratches on the surface, then I see the scratches. You see the glare from the light there? That's one of the things I try to avoid, and it's difficult with enamel. But one of the things that I'm trying to do is to not have what enamelists call a kiln fired surface, which is when you put it back into the kiln after you've ground it. Because then it makes it look more like glass instead of like a gemstone. And
Uh-huh.
there tends to be more glare. So I'm trying to give it a lapidary polish so I can dive down like I'm in the canoe on Lake George, looking over the edge of the boat, and I can see 30 feet below, and I can see the rocks on the bottom, and I can see the sunlight bouncing through, and the fish moving, and I can see all that cool stuff in the water.
Oh, I love it. That's what I feel like when I look at your pieces.
That's what I want.
Crazy. Love it.
All right, so let me tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with grinding. And
Okay.
get the piece ground. And then I'm going to ask myself some questions about what direction I want to go for the polishing. So for the grinding, I'm going to use the gray flex diamond. Let me go ahead and I'll change the camera now.
Yeah. So, yeah, just to go through basically what he's going. He's going to do the things that are found in the Ricky Frank kit, and his kit does have the grinding diamond and fine, and then he does like to use the coarse, the medium, the fine, and the very fine. You guys.
Ooh,
So just so you know, go ahead, Ricky,
you've
talk.
got a different color course. So I would normally go, I would grind the surface
Yep.
with the coarse.
Yep.
I'm sorry, the flex diamond.
Yeah. Just they just call it grinding diamond.
Okay. And I would be trying to get the wires that are sticking out removed. I'd be trying to, so that's step number one. Step number two is going to be to chase the lines, which means I'm removing the enamel from the wires. So I'm not thinking about highs and low areas. All I want to do is get all the wires exposed so there's no enamel on the wires. That's step two. And then step three is going to be to look for low areas between the lines where the enamel may be too low. And then I have to ask myself different questions to create a plan to decide what to do next. So those are the three things. I'm going to remove the enamel from the side. I'm sorry, the wires from the side. Because you see how that wire is sticking off the end there?
Right. Yep.
What I want to avoid, and one of the things I'm always asking myself is not only what do I want, but what do I want to avoid? So what I want to avoid here, what I want to avoid is having this disc spin
Yep.
and yank the wire in a different direction and it chips the enamel.
Right.
So when I hold the piece and turn it, I'm going to be turning in a way that is following the line going off the piece in
Yep.
the same direction. All righty.
Right.
And then I'm going to look at the piece when it's all matte. It's going to be very scratchy and hopefully all matte. And then I'm going to have some choices about what to do for my polish. So let's just go ahead and do this now. You can see the one I don't know, Anie, why does that get so worn and this doesn't?
You know, that has to do with a little pressure. So once the wheel starts getting a certain pressure, that one side, since it has a cushion, is wanting to give in more. And that's all you see. That's why I tell people don't push. Just light, let it glide. So, you know what? I know you share this with a lot of your students.
Mm-hmm.
So it could have remembered that pushy back then. But mine, for example, don't do that. Like, look
Wow.
at all mine. Like, every single one of mine don't do that.
Well, I'm gonna have to, I think, maybe do a new one and do a kind of a control to see if I can figure out how not to have that happen. But
Yeah,
I've used this, Ani. I've probably used this one for 4 years, and
4 years.
I probably ground six, at least 600 pieces with this one piece.
Wow, Ricky, 600 pieces with
Yeah,
this one diamond.
yeah.
Okay, well, then
It,
that explains that little. But I know, and it's hard to get rid of it too because there's still beautiful diamond on there, you
yeah,
know?
it works. I'm gonna, I'll keep using it until it doesn't work, or it doesn't give me the result. And everything
Absolutely.
works. You always get a result until I don't get a result that I want.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I'm going to just put a little bit of water here. I'm sure some of
See,
you guys already know this, but
he
I'm just
does
going
it,
to
does
do it.
just like what I do. Beautiful. Love you, Ricky.
I learned from the expert. I'm going to put that on there. I'm going to stand up. I'm going to put a little bit of water on my piece. Let's gotta mirror this
Go the
properly.
other side. Yeah, yeah. Going to left, left. Oh, that's good.
There we go. And I usually do this about maybe 2/3 speed. And I'm going to do what I said with the wires. So I'm following the direction of the wires coming off the piece. So these are going that way. This one is going this direction. And that had a little bit more wire sticking out, so I used much less pressure. Yet I'm thinking about what I want to avoid.
Yes.
Okay, and I think I've got it pretty good now. So I can do several different things. I can kind of do an overall plan or work on different areas. And I usually just do one thing and then it just kind of evolves. But let me show you how I'm holding it. So I'm kind of starting like this. And of course, it depends on the size of the piece. Obviously going to hold a bigger piece differently than a small piece. I had a nurse that worked for an arm surgeon once watch my demo, and she said, "Ricky, let me tell you what you're doing. One hand is always um, controlling the pressure, and the other hand is turning the piece. And
Right.
what you're doing is you're unconsciously changing back and forth as you do that. So that might be something for you to consider when you're using your jewel tool of paying attention to what are my hands and fingers doing. Because if you're not aware of what you're doing, you can't change it. But if you're aware that you're turning or changing the pressure with one hand, you can be more intentional with it.
I agree. Well said, Ricky.
Thank you.
Yeah, your pressure is really good. Very nice. They see how he like moves it. Go ahead, Ricky.
That's okay. So let's just take a look and you can see where the wires have been exposed and where they haven't been. So it looks like a wide, flat, white line where the enamel's been removed. So I've gotten that pretty good. I've still got some low areas here. You see remember I talked about it's shiny or matte? So it's shiny here, but there's no point grinding down more enamel until I've started to grind some of this because I want it to be even. And then I can make a decision, is this low enough with the wires and do I need to put more enamel here? Or should I just grind down and remove more of the enamel? So
Right.
I'm going to keep rotating it. Anyway, I'm going to change this for a second. I'm going to change the angle and I want to see if you can see more what I'm saying.
We don't have to see the full disc. You can kind of give us a half, like a half moon of the disc.
Let's see. I want to.
Yeah, that's good.
Think, yeah, it's the angle of the camera.
Looks good. Beautiful.
And I think I'm going about half speed now. Going to turn it up a little bit just to go faster. So one thing that Anie told me years ago that I always think of, and I tell my students, is make believe that I'm sitting in a rocking chair on my porch. And I'm just kind of gently rocking back and forth. Nice, slow movements across the piece. So I try to remember that actually every time I'm doing a piece. And let's look at now, there are a couple areas where there's enamel over the wire. See the difference here to here? Right there, there's enamel on the wire. Right there, there's enamel on the wire. And over here. But what I wanted to talk about was what are the different movements I'm doing with my hands. So one movement is slow rocking, maybe half to 2/3 across the piece. Okay, I'm using a 3-inch disc now. I could rock it more if it was a wider 4-inch one, but I don't have a 4-inch flex diamond.
So, we have to get it for you, Ricky. We now have all grades available in the 4-inch.
Oh, super.
Yeah, well, that's new. I haven't told them. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. So that's one movement, a long, slow movement. Then another movement is, I've got this edge here, and what I want is for that edge to just kind of taper over and have a nice curve, but not remove much enamel. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have another movement where I'm going to go along the edges, just kind of tilting this way gently. So that's movement number 2. Movement number 3 is going to be going along the length so that, this one's kind of easy because it's straight, but when I get to that curve there or that point, I don't want to take too much enamel off of there. So I'm going to curve the piece. So this is a long, steady rock. This is a slight angle. And this is a long, slow curve across there. Now, one of the things I love about the jewel tool is I can get a really wonderful tapered point or corner on a piece that when I used to use my expanding drum, which I used for probably 15 years, I always ended up getting a facet somewhere. But with the jewel tool, I'm able to totally control that angle, kind of going like that and adjusting the pressure so that I'm not getting facets there and getting one side too thin and one side too thick. That's one of the things I really love about this. So I'm going to keep working on this for a little while longer.
Great. Wow, well said. That's excellent explanation, Ricky. He's using the grinding diamond, you guys. The grinding diamond.
So I'm going to do this angle now. We'll do all 4 sides.
You see how he's curving, you guys,
And
Along that edge, he's
now I'm going to probe the
rocking it.
points.
Rocking. He's rocking it. Very nice. Full control. So good. I could watch you like all day long, Ricky.
So I'm working on that one. There we go. We got that one spot there. And let's take a look at it. So I've got, can you see a few gloss? Here's an area that's still enamel on the wire. So, and there's enamel on the wire. So I need to work those two areas before I make more choices. So I'm just going to put this in the water and get some of the grit off of there and dry it. And as I was doing this, I was noticing that I can't always see the wire that I'm getting enamel off of through this. But what part of the beauty of this tool is that I can see how I'm rocking the piece. And that gives me control. If I can't see it, I don't know whether to turn it more or less or how far. So I can see it, and so as I see it, that vision is going into my brain, and my hands are adjusting. And that's what I think a really great part of this process is that connects my hands to my eyes to the tool. No,
Mm-hmm.
my hands and my eyes and the material and the tools all together.
Hand-eye coordination. Beautiful.
Yeah. So I've just got, I think, a couple little areas where it's glossy, and that means it's low. Right there. Let's see if we can turn it. So normally I want that all matte. So I have two choices. I can keep grinding down to get that level, which means I'm removing enamel. So if I'm worried about losing depth or losing color, what I'll do instead is I'll clean the surface, all the grit that got removed. Some of it's in the pits here. So I would remove that. I can show you how I do that. And then I would put a little bit of clear enamel in those low areas. Or I can just keep grinding down and make it level. And I think I'm going to do that right now. So I'm going to remove a little more. And I just decided that I think I'll add that in so people can see how I do that. So let's get it under, you can see that little glossy area there. So
Right?
the next thing I'm going to do, well, let's talk about three options at this point. So if I ground this down, then what I would do is start to think about the polishing, because I've just been grinding right now. I haven't been polishing. So what I want to do to polish is I want to remove those deeper scratches and keep removing the scratches until I can't see them. Look at, I just noticed, see those little other glossy areas?
Yep.
Yep. So I got a couple repairs to do. But if I was ready to go to the lapidary now, the finer polishes, I've got two choices. I can go to the coarse and then work my way down through the different ones until I get to the very fine.
Mm-hmm.
That's most of the work. And actually this is most of the work to begin with. So,
Absolutely.
so I
Yep.
would call that just step one would be full lapidary.
Yes.
Another approach would be to put this in the kiln, do a kiln polish that seals all the scratches, And then I probably start with this again, but there's going to be so little time using this to get those deeper because there are no deep scratches anymore. Because I
Okay.
fired them out with the kiln. I smoothed it all.
Okay. So after this step, Ricky,
Yeah,
you suggest firing it because
I
I
do.
don't have a kiln and I go straight
Yeah,
down the line of diamonds.
yeah. So I got to where this fall when I was making probably about 150 new pieces for my Christmas show, my
Mm-hmm.
online Christmas sale. Even the tiny little pieces, I found that because I could fire 10 of these at a time on a screen.
Uh-huh.
That saved me time rather than going through all of the tediousness of having to me the tediousness is having to look at scratches, to look,
Uh-huh.
not necessarily getting them out but trying to find them. And so by doing that kiln polish on all those pieces, it just cut down my polishing time so fast.
Yeah.
And like
Well,
I
you're
said
doing a lot
earlier,
of pieces.
i
Total
don't like
production work.
I don't like the glare, so I then just quickly go through all these different you know
Right. Yep.
papers,
All the
and
different
it's
steps. So
very
those
quick.
are all the steps.
Yeah, I go through all the steps, but because I've gotten rid of these deep scratches, it's much faster.
Yep.
And
I understand.
not only is it faster, but I don't have to concentrate as much. And
Yeah.
we all have limits to our brain capacity, to be able to concentrate for less of time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's much easier to do a lot of work if you don't have to concentrate as much.
Got it.
So let me show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take something called, let's see if I can bring this over to another
I'm gonna ask
camera.
some more questions.
Okay, hold on
I'm
one
intrigued.
sec.
Ricky, so the
Yes.
areas that were a little recessed that you didn't grind.
Yeah.
So if you gave me this piece to grind, clearly I don't have enamel nor a
Right.
kiln. Stick that back in and put another layer on. So I would just kind of feather that in and even it out.
Yes, you would keep grinding.
I mean,
Yeah.
because it
So
doesn't seem like a huge dip. So if
okay.
someone
So
doesn't want to put another layer on, couldn't they just lightly grind that and blend it?
no, it's not. Well, then you're going to have an uneven layer. You're going to have a
Ah,
surface that has highs and lows.
okay,
So the
okay.
way I the way that I would approach it. Let's hold on a second.
Because it doesn't look that deep to.
It's not, but if you want to have, I'm not trying to get a perfect surface, but I don't want to have something where a customer touches it and it just feels weird, where they
Ah,
look at it at an angle and it looks weird. Because remember my aesthetic, I want to be able to look down into the glass. I don't want something there that's going, oh, wait a minute. I don't want to have that, oh, wait a minute feeling.
I understand. It's all in the details. I
Yes.
love it.
So,
Gotcha.
so I'm going to make a choice. Am I going to grind more enamel and remove depth so that it's all level? And if I do it, I'm going to do it over the whole piece.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, over time, you make enough pieces, you get to eyeball things, and sometimes I know on my last firing, I'm putting enamel over wires because I need to get to the low areas.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not trying to be careful and only put in the low wires. It's not worth taking the time to think about.
Got it.
So I'm not being that careful at the end of the firing. I just want to make it so I know how much I'm going to grind down to get the wires exposed. And, with experience, you're going to figure it out. And then there are going to be times where it's just easier. I know I'm going to take this piece, especially because it's big. The bigger the piece, the more scratches, the more work it takes to polish. So
Yep.
sometimes it's just, if I've got 6 of these, it just makes a ton of sense to do the kiln polish on all 6.
Right.
Because then I might be saving 20 minutes, or even if I save 10 minutes on each one, I've just saved an hour. That's a
Beautiful.
lot of time. So hope that answered your question.
That's good. Someone's asking, can you use the torch? And
Sure.
Maya's asking.
Yeah.
He says yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So So let's go ahead and change back and show you what I'm doing here.
Yes, I'm excited. I'm riveted. I'm
So
so captivated.
I've got something called the glass brush here, and it's basically got little, let's see, looks like kind of like a cigar with little threads of glass here. I think it's some
What
kind of
is
fiberglass.
that?
And so what I'm going to do is go like this. Let's
To clean all the dust off.
is to get the grit out of the pits.
Yep. Beautiful.
Yep. So, and it's also nice when it's, when it's wet, you don't see the scratches.
Mm-hmm.
So the dust in here is microscopic.
Yep.
So I just do it all over the piece and do it several times because you can't see anything change. Now, if you forget to do this, which, sometimes in a live class, it's something students forget to do. When you fire it, the surface will look kind of like a matte gray and real ugly. But luckily, you could grind that off too. And
yeah, I was just gonna say I've seen that happen, and people just go, "Oh, I just take it to my jewel tool and grind it away."
Yep.
So
okay, so
but this is nice. I like this little brush technique, you guys. This is really cool.
It's called a glass brush. I'll give you a tip about glass brushes. There are two different kinds on the market. This is one that's surrounded by rubber, and there's another one that's surrounded by string that you kind of unwind. This one I have never gotten a splinter from. The ones with the strings are less expensive, but they give you little splinters if you touch them.
Oh, no. I like the rubber one already.
You can't see them because it's glass. So they're hard to get out of your fingers. So this is kind of pricey. This might be, I don't know, $40, $50. This is about a maybe 3/4 of an inch wide. I've seen some that are really, really big. But for jewelry making, this one's great.
Beautiful.
And I've had this one for probably 20 years.
Okay, so your $45 is now not even cents.
You'll never wear it out.
No. Sometimes buying something of quality will save you. Oh, you know this will save you in the long run. It's not like I invented that. It's true. Right. That's lovely.
Okay, so there is my piece. And let's go ahead and put a little bit of flux on there.
Okay, it's going to put flux on there.
And so I don't have as good a light there, so I'm having a little.
That piece looks like the one I have of yours. Look at this. Oh, overhead. Okay, look. Remember this one, you guys? I have this all in my picture. Yeah. This is Ricky Frank's piece. I polished one side and I left the other raw. That's his signature. I love it, Ricky. Every time I see this, I feel your energy. I swear. I love your pieces. Okay, keep going. Okay, so go ahead. Sorry.
No, I can't. The lighting over here isn't too good, so I'm not worrying about just getting in the low areas.
Got it.
I'm just going to go because I'm not. I've got the jewel tool where my lighting is, and I don't want to have to deal with moving it right now. So try to keep it off the wires, but I can grind that off.
So right now, you guys, he's filling in the low parts that he noticed after grinding on the jewel tool. And that's pretty cool. I'm excited to watch this process because he really wants his piece to be completely even and not thin it out to ruin that, that looking down into the river with the rocks and the glistening. It's true. When you remove all of that, it diminishes that effect. So I'm here with you, Ricky. I've got it. You got me captivated.
Okay, good. So let's see. So this is when I take my time, and it's one of those questions that I'm asking myself is what is good enough and what is good enough at this step? And there's not a right answer for that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring this into the kiln room. And I'm going to do this in the kiln room.
Show me.
Well, because it's a bigger piece. This is a bigger piece, and it's going to take a little long with the torch.
So gotcha.
I'm going to do it in the kiln, and let me tell you what I'm going to look for. The obvious thing to look for is, and so this is a little trick about kiln firing. I tell my students two different things to think about. One is to think about the principle of intention. So intention is 3 different steps. One is, what is your goal? Number 2 is, what has to change for you to reach your goal? Number 3 is, how can you tell if the changes happen? And that's going to be what I do with the jewel tool. Same thing. What result?
Right.
What changes? How do you know? So I find with the jewel tool, if I have good lighting, I can tell better. So when I put this in the kiln, the change I want is I want all of the enamel to be perfectly smooth, no pits, no bubbles, no scratches. What has to change? The enamel has to get hot enough for a long enough time to do that. How can I tell? Well, the first thing I'm going to see is the fresh enamel is going to get glossy, and then the ground surface is going to have lots of little pits and scratches, and it's going to get smooth. So what I'm going to do is look for, that's going to be my first thing to tell. So I don't even care about what's happening if I'm seeing, remember the surface when we fired the color and the enamel changed?
Yes.
That's what's going to happen here. So I'm not paying any attention until that's smooth and glossy there and there.
I got you.
Then I'm going to start paying attention to the other areas and try to see if I can see pits or scratches, because if I see pits or scratches, it's not in long enough. And then I'll pull the piece out, and I've got a nice light over my kiln, and that's how I'm going to be able to tell, because I have enough light to see. It's hard to look inside the kiln and see everything you want to see. You can see some things, but there's some things you can't see because of the light of the kiln. So I'm going to go put that in the kiln now. Don't ask me a question for about a minute. I'll be right back.
No worries. I'll do all the talking. So I hope you guys are enjoying today. I'm fully captivated by this enamel product. Doesn't this make you want to start enameling? It has a lot of, you got to learn obviously, but the process just seems so fun and easy and quick. So it's my kind of process. Loving it so far. Yeah, so if you guys need more info on his classes, I've gone ahead and put the links for his classes. rickyfrank.com is his website. And he also has, for all of you guys who joined in a little later, he has a library. It's kind of like a Netflix for enamel. And you can watch as a 7-day free trial. And it's called the enamelchannel.com. And that's where you can view Ricky's library of videos. So cool. I'm going to go look at it. Okay, so go ahead. Sorry, Ricky's back.
It's about this. So, it's a large piece, and I'm firing at 1350. It's a low temperature. Okay. So the lower the temperature, the longer it takes. It's like baking. So I've got what I call a big window of success. So the lower the temperature, the more time it takes. So I'm less anxious. A hotter kiln, it's much easier to overfire it.
Yeah, so, you're playing with fire.
Yeah, so I'm firing at 1350 now, just so people know. And the enamel starts to melt at 1300. So I could program the kiln for 1300. That's about as low as I could go.
Right.
If it doesn't get hot enough, it doesn't melt. And it has to reach that 1300 for long enough for it to melt.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that 1350 is your sweet spot.
Well, 1350 for my work when I use opalescent enamel is the tipping point when the opalescent enamel starts to get too opaque.
Ah.
So gotcha. I got my kiln program right now for 1350, so I don't have to worry about it if I use opalescent.
Ah. Okay. Makes sense. Yeah. Yep.
So let me talk about my classes just for a minute while we're in the kiln. So right now, what I do is I have a 6-week mentoring class. So I've got 29 students, and we've broken it up into 2 groups. So each week for 6 weeks, we have new lessons that are released on a certain enamel technique, like a color gradation or foils or opalescent white or creating enamel edges. And so, as I talked earlier, we create tutorials to learn different ways of thinking. So I might learn how to play with edges. I might learn to experiment with edges. I might learn to translate with edges. And then the students create their own tutorials instead of copying my tutorial. My tutorial serves as a a jumping off point. You can kind of see how I'm thinking as I try to teach myself to think in enamel.
Hmm.
And then the students create their own tutorials and do their own tutorials, because this way they're really engaged, and they learn it. They don't just think, now, what did Ricky say? Or what did Ricky do? Because when you do something, it becomes internalized. It's like riding a bike. So we go through these 6 weeks of lessons, and each week we do several Zoom classes where we do more about the creativity, more about the expression, more about design. We look at some of the tutorials that people have posted on our group forum so we can learn from how everyone else is creating their tutorials. Because, like I
Wow.
said, everyone's pieces are different. And we go through 6 weeks of that. And then all the Zoom classes are recorded, so that's included. And then all students have 6 months to access everything
Six
afterward,
months to access your pre-recorded classes
and the Zoom classes.
and the Zoom classes.
So if you
Wow.
can't make a Zoom class, you can see the recordings, and we do them 2 different times a day. So if something comes up during the day, an emergency, and you can't make the early one, you go to the late one. And they're all different too, because I have different students asking different questions. So let me go
Wow.
check my piece. I'll be right back. I'm going to go and change the camera so you can see it when I pull it out.
I'm excited. Whoa. So excited. So digging this. Really. I really am. Like, this is like, I feel like I'm watching the show. Like, I don't feel like I'm, a part of the show. I feel like just like you guys. So, this is so, oh, wow. Wow. Look at that, you guys. Look how even it is. Okay, I get what you're saying now, Ricky. I understand how it'd be a quick little zippity doo dah right there on your sanding steps.
Okay, so we're going to let that cool. And then one more thing, and then I'll hit it with the jewel tool again and see where we can take it. So let's go back here for 1 second. And I was thinking, one of the things I'm trying to do as a teacher, I remember thinking back when I was coaching soccer, I was kind of like, I was trying to teach the kids how to be creative, and I was just using soccer as a vehicle.
Hmm.
So I was kind of fooling them, though they were learning soccer. And I kind of feel, in a way, I'm doing that with some of my enamel students. I'm trying to get you to learn how to think creatively. I'm helping you learn how to connect with your heart and how to take that connection and create imagery using your media.
Beautiful.
And so the enameling, as much as I love enameling and I love watching students be excited about enameling, I know what I really care about is that how do we go from the imagery in the world through our brain, through our heart, and put it out into the world in a new form? What's the process that we can learn to do that? That's what's really exciting for me. Those are my happy dances now. When I teach, I don't get the happy dances from watching students make pretty work, though I do. I get the happy dances when I get a student that has transformed their life. And it's
Oh,
amazing. It's amazing watching the internal changes instead of the changes of the enamel.
absolutely. I think I got goosebumps right now when you said that.
So
I
what
share
I
that with you.
So
Oh,
what
no.
I'm thinking is, what I would love to do, if you have students, viewers that are interested, is to maybe find a way to, because I know everyone doesn't want to enamel. People are here that just want to learn about the jewel tool, or they were interested in enamel, but you may have viewers who want to learn about making that connection with their heart and how to put how to put it together through the tools and the materials in your hands and your eyes and your head and your heart, how to do that using your material. And
That's right.
that's what I want to teach. And so, if you have people that might be interested, I might be able to come and join you once a week
Oh, I would love
and,
that.
and do some of the exercises that I do with my students that don't have anything to do with enameling or the jewel tool. And it's like creativity camp.
I would love that. I would welcome you on my show once a week to pop in and do your exercises with us. Wouldn't you guys all love Ricky Frank on our show during the week? Like once a week? I would love that. Thank you, Ricky.
You're
We
welcome.
would love to. We would love that. And
Well,
thank you. And Maysoon actually has a wonderful, nice little thing to say about you. Maysoon says it's a fabulous teaching format. I'm in week 2 with Ricky right now. So excited to use my jewel tool on the enamels I'm making in class. Wow, so already you've got people in class now.
yeah, so I've got a 6-week class.
Wow.
We just started week 2 on
Riveting.
Wednesday, and the next class is going to be a creative cloisonne class, which will be in March. I'm
March.
working on designing that now. Now these classes, I call the creative part kind of like creative boot camp.
Mm-hmm.
So we include that into the program. It's more like a program than a class. And then I'll be doing the creative cloisonne in March for 6 weeks. And then probably starting at the end of April, beginning of May, the next round of creative color. So the
Wow.
difference is creating layers of glass, blending layers of glass to learn how to paint with color, layers, and light. That's the creative color class. That's what Maysoon's in now. Or the creative cloisonne class. And that's really focusing on integrating wire as a design element,
Mm-hmm.
but including foil and enamel layers at the same time.
Got it.
And so it's a combining technique, it's combining creative skills, it's combining self-expression, design.
I
And
love it.
the most important part is it's learning how to let go. Letting go of the things that keep you stuck.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
And even though I think there are like 20 things that keep me stuck. Um, and so I know that everyone has different things where they get stuck. Um, and depending on what day it is for me, it's something new. So I'm going to go grab that piece and we'll take a look at it. And you have a little bit more time. I can do a little bit more polishing on that. Or
absolutely. Go for it. We're all sitting here
okay, I'll be right back.
waiting. I'm waiting. I want to see. It's really nice to see it from, like, especially me grinding. We're using the jewel tool from his perspective. I love that. I love listening to everyone using the jewel tools. And, since he's a instructor and a teacher, he goes through all the steps. So, like, when you take a class with him, you don't just learn just basics enamel. You'll learn how to enamel and play with the light. And he goes into all this, going deep in within yourself and pull out that beautiful creative side that you were born to have. And then he shows you how to work on the jewel tool. Wham, bam, that's a double whammy. I love it. So thank you, Ricky Frank. No, but I just admire him from day
Okay,
one.
so I've
I
got,
met him back in I met you at the Rio Grande event. I'll never forget. And that's the picture I posted today. That picture was the weekend I met Ricky Frank.
do you remember the first thing you said to me?
No?
What's enamel?
Oh, yes. At first, I didn't understand because back in my day, we filled in filigree. I have an old piece of enamel, and this is as far as the enamel that I knew growing up. I'm actually going to show you that piece. It's literally right behind me. It's that butterfly. Hold on. So, as far as I knew, this is what jewelers would use on enamel. Hold on. Let me find that butterfly piece. Now we're both off camera. Look at us. Oh, here it is right here. So, this is an antique piece, you guys, and this was enamel as far as I knew it. Oh, should I show it up on the screen? So this is the enamel that I grew up with, Ricky. Just take a look, see. This is so old. This has to be at least, I want to say, 60 years old. And this is the enamel that I knew. So when you're like, the enamel, and I'm like, what is he doing with enamel? I totally didn't understand that it's this amazing stuff he works on. And that's all I knew. Because remember, I came from the world of jewelry making.
Right.
This is as
Well,
far as enamel went for me.
honestly, I had seen your video and I just shook my head and I thought, I don't know what the hell she's talking about. But it was so amazing watching you in the vendor room at Rio that first year. I went, oh my God, that's that woman and that tool. And then I watched and my eyes got so big and I went, oh my God. This is going to change my life. And it did, because I I got one of the Rio people to give me a machine to take home. And I came home and I searched through my studio for 2 days and found all these pieces that, were just scrap or tests, and I could grind them. And to me, grinding and polishing had always been the most tedious task, the task that was the least fun, and the task that was the most scary, because I could either ruin my piece or ruin my fingers. I mean, I've got some really bad scars on my fingers from my expanding drum. And there was a learning curve of years to get good at it. There were several times I vowed I would never grind another earring in my life. I just didn't like it, obviously. And I was so excited. I've never used a new tool that changed not just the way I work, but my feeling about doing the task. That's an amazing testimonial. It changes how I perceive the task, because it went from agony to ecstasy. It did. It's fun now. It's fun because I can see it becoming closer to my vision.
Well said. Oh my God, that really gave me goosebumps. I swear to you, Ricky, I love that. Seeing it to come up to turn into your vision. That's
yeah,
everything I've always dreamed of. Maybe that's why I love you so much.
You've done it for me.
To it so fast.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna switch over now to my machine. And
you guys, isn't he sweet? He really is, you guys. If you don't know him personally, you just hear of this Ricky Frank. He's really a sweet guy.
But I'll warn you, I am very challenging, because I have a pretty set mind of the way I want to teach, and people that want the answer are not going to like me. I am making you think. I am challenging students to think, and not everybody wants that. Some people just want the answers, but when you just want the answers, you're still stuck in your box. See, I feel very strong about this. So you've got to be willing to meet me halfway.
I'm with you on this. Ricky, we actually go through this during my live shows. I tell people, you have to stop and look at the piece. You have to see what it needs. You have to dig deep inside you and think. It's not a black and white answer all the time,
Exactly.
So you got to gauge it, because sometimes I'll use the coarse diamond, the extra coarse diamond. Sometimes I'll use the finer coarse diamond. And everyone's like, well, why are you using it then? Well, because this piece is telling me it's a little bit more delicate, and I want to use, a more delicate grinding diamond. So I love how you dig deep into people and pull that out of them.
Well, you are in a relationship with your piece and your tool. You're in a relationship with your piece and your tool. And you are, like you said, you are listening to it. That's really what you're doing. You're, like what happens when you're talking to your spouse and you don't listen. It doesn't go well. It's the same thing.
Well said. Oh, I love that analogy. Did you guys hear that? He said, you look at the piece, and the piece tells you what it wants. It's kind of like you talking to your spouse, and the spouse is talking and you're not listening. It's not going to go good. So I love that. I'm going to repeat that over and over again.
Okay, so I'm working with the coarse fine diamond. And so first of all, I'm asking, what is my goal? My goal is it to be completely matte and no low areas. And the wires should already be exposed, because I didn't put any enamel over the wires. Except I might have had a little bit spill over, but that'll grind right off. So
right. I'm so into this, you guys. So he's using the turquoise coarse diamond, you guys. This one.
See, it's happening pretty quick.
That was quick. That was beautiful. I understand how if you're pumping these out, You want to just keep it moving. The 10 minutes is everything for you. I got you. Yeah, good analogy, Nicole. Give a man to fish. He eats for a day. Give a man to fish.
Okay, so because I was talking while I was firing, you see how that there's some areas along the wires that are a little low, a little
Yes.
shiny? What happened was that enamel, once it got glossy, it got hotter because I
Mm.
was, running my mouth inside with the camera. And so the enamel pulled away from the wire slightly. So that's why we're seeing some glossy areas next to the wires. So
Ah,
I've got to grind that down a little bit now.
got it.
So I need to check something.
But
Okay.
I can see you're much more even. I
Hold
see
on
it.
1 second, please.
Wait, wait. So, um, what am I saying? So I could see after firing you guys why it would be quicker to use your turquoise wheel to sand. I get it. It's quicker. So basically, when he fires, he doesn't have to pay too much attention to, the grind marks. Do you know what I mean? You know how I always teach you guys pay attention to the grind marks, change the direction of your sanding to get rid of them. So he used the kiln while he was filling in the low spots. Oh, talking. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry,
No,
sorry, sorry. Go ahead.
you're exactly right. It's almost like it's one more, uh, instead of a disc, it's just a kiln.
Yes.
One more
Yes.
step.
Well said.
Yeah. So I'm going to grind a little bit more or polish a little bit more with this one.
Yeah, I'll get to your questions in just a bit. Let him just finish this
Okay,
because those are quick.
so it's getting a little smoother now.
Oh, I
One
could see it.
thing,
Oh, that's
one,
beautiful.
one little tip I wanted to mention is that because it's art, I have lines and shapes, and I like to break a piece into segments. So I might be looking this section, or I might be looking this section, or I might be looking here. So one of the things I'm doing is looking at areas of that I can have as a frame of reference, so I know where I am. Now I know Anie, you've used the Sharpie on your pieces to tell. I'm just lazy. I know it doesn't take long, but I just kind of follow different different parts of the piece. Like for a round piece, if I was going to do this piece, I might be working, from here to here, and then from here to there. So I have
Does that sound familiar, you guys? I say this too, Ricky.
okay.
This is why I love you. You like have my brain in a
All
weird
right, so
way.
I'm going to keep working on this a little while longer. If you want to keep doing with the talking and questions, I'll work on this.
Yeah, no, so beautiful. Everyone's saying Ani works in sections too. I say this. Look, this is why I connect with Ricky. He thinks like me. And sometimes I just say, I love you, Ricky. I do over a conversation because he gets it. So when you work in sections, you guys, you take care of that one area and you make sure it's even, it's clean, and then you move to the other. This is why I tell you guys, don't do things in one huge pass and back and forth. You don't know what's happening. It's happening too fast. You got to do it section by section by section and then do a one whole pass. Do you know what I mean? So here's some questions we have. We have a question of, do you prefer certain brand of enamels, Ricky?
Hold on 1 second. I don't want to forget this one spot.
Go ahead. I'm with you. Do your thing.
So another thing I was doing was I was rubbing my hand this way and just feeling it to make sure that it's nice and smooth, that I don't have hills and valleys.
Hmm.
Kind of going like this as I go.
Interesting. I'm not a feeler. I just see it. I actually play with the light. The light tells me if I'm even, if I'm lumpy.
Mm-hmm. Well, I got one little spot that I don't want to miss, and then I'll go back to your question.
I see it. I see it. I see it. No worries. Do your thing. We're here. So yes, Mary, he is working with a little water in his water tray. So this is the tray, and you put water in here, and he's just dabbing. You don't need a lot of water. The water is to lubricate your diamonds to last longer. It's not getting hot. He's not using the water as any kind of any kind of like coolant, basically. No.
So
The water tray is located, if you don't know, at the base of your jewel tool.
yes, I've got that now. I think there's one
Okay, go back to Ricky.
more. So I got that one area there, and there's one little area here. That was where I was doing that repair.
Yep. You guys see how he's pinpointing everything through seeing through the wheel. This is really important, you guys, to make sure you have good aerial vision overhead so you can pinpoint all those little details and make your piece perfect. Really.
Okay, so I think that I've gotten everything done with this course. So I'll just leave this here now and go to any questions about any of the stuff we're doing. People are interested in. So you want to do any questions with me now, Anie?
Yeah, real quick. What brand of enamels do you prefer?
Different colors, different brands, possibly. The ones that I use on all my pieces are, I said they were leaded. So I'm using old vintage Thompson leaded. They stopped making leaded enamel in the early 1980s. Hold on, let me just, you said you like to see my face, so we'll bring that back up. So
Are they going to be phased out, Ricky?
Excuse me?
The leaded ones, are they going to be phased out?
Well, no, the Thompson phased them out in the early 1980s.
Ah, got it.
Okay. So, but I bought some, I collect them. People, I always say there's this thing called dead enamel studios. Old ladies that died from the 50s, and someone discovers their stash and they're trying to sell it.
Ah, okay. And then Suni is asking, how do you store your enamels?
Well, does she mean when I buy them, or in between pieces, or in between weeks?
I think in between, like as you're using them, what do you store them in? Do you just have a little lid with little?
Okay, so I have the medicine cups that I was using. I showed you.
Oh, yes.
So,
I've seen those in your class.
Okay, so because I'm using larger grains, they store and keep better than the finer grains. They don't break down over time. So like I said, I'm the imperfect enamelist. So what I do is I leave my tray. Let's see if I can show you my tray. I leave my tray of colors out. Let's get that on camera here. So I've got my tray of colors.
Got it.
And they're in their cups. So,
I see.
So I'll just tell you what I do. It's not by plan, really. I'll be all done enameling, and let's say I'll take this tray and move it somewhere else. I don't cover it up necessarily. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't.
Mm-hmm.
The water is going to evaporate over time. And let's say I come back in a week and I do more enameling. I'll take this color, take the color and rinse it out once or twice and use it again. I am probably the least careful person maintaining my colors of anybody, but it's because I'm using the larger grains.
Got it.
If I was using 80 mesh from a jar that I didn't grind myself, I would have less enamel in the cup because I wouldn't want to waste it, because I end up throwing it away after a couple of days.
Got it.
So I don't keep using it if it's 80 mesh, unless it's opaque. Unless it's opaque. So opaque, I'm not worrying about the clarity so much. Well, there's no clarity, so it's the transparency that are important. And what I do is I use these until, if I rinse it and there's like a film on the top, then and it won't rinse off, like I keep rinsing it and the film stays, then I throw them away.
Got it. Throw away if the film, yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I wouldn't use it either.
Then I end up getting bubbles coming up through my colors at some point, and I never know when it's going to happen, so I don't want to take a chance.
Okay, perfect. Great. Okay, go on. Continue. We'll follow up with more questions as they trickle on in.
Okay, let me
That
get.
let him just he'll answer that later. Some questions I'm going to have him answer right after he's done. Let's not bombard him.
Let me switch back over to the jewel tool.
Switch. So exciting. Woo! There it is. It's
Going
looking so good.
the beige medium.
Okay, get off me. The beige medium. Yep, we want to see Ricky. Oh yeah. Yara's saying I'm directing the show. Yes, I am. I want to see the Ricky in action. You guys see really light glide. You see how he's kind of keeping full contact with the wheel.
There's that rock that I was doing. Then
Yep.
I'm doing the curve along the edge like
Yep.
this. And then I'm doing the curl.
Wow, look at that.
So let's take a look. I just dried it off on my shirt. And I've got shinier on one side and
Yep.
matter on the other.
Yep.
But there aren't any deep scratches. You know, that
Nope.
firing really made this easy to do.
Beautiful. So that's great. I can tell people that if they want to get rid of some of those deep scratches in a hurry to refire it one more time. That's great. Great tip. And you guys see how he is keeping full contact with the wheel. He's not jumping around. He's consistent, gentle pressure, and he's moving it so he doesn't have one, grind pattern. It's kind of like all over, not just one direction. Very nice. Cross grinding. This is what you do, you guys.
It's this dance you're doing with your hands.
Yes, the dance. Oh, baby, we love to dance around here. Oh, yeah. Okay, let's see it.
I'm going to switch over now. That was pretty quick. I'm going to go to the fine.
He's using the medium, you guys, now. He's using the medium the medium sanding diamond, you guys. There you go.
Fine. I just
no, that's what he used, and now he's using the fine. Perfect. So prior to the fine, prior to the green, he used the medium sanding. You guys see? And now this is going to start giving you, like, I want to say like a pre-ish polish. It's not as dull as the prior steps.
What I just realized is as I'm doing it finer, I'm not so concerned with keeping it moving.
Yes.
Because I'm not going to be removing enamel.
Yep.
And I'm more concerned with just making sure I'm getting the scratches out.
Perfect. Yep. Yep. That was really good. I'm glad you said that. Do you see, guys, how he works in section by section? He's not like going crazy and doing the whole piece at once. It's section by section with a light touch. And he's not sliding off the wheel. He's dropping it. He's not working off the edge at all. He's making zero contact with that edge right now. You see how his piece is angled? Very nice.
One thing I should have mentioned is if I'm going to be setting this in a bezel, I want to make sure I get enamel off the edge there.
Mm-hmm.
What I found was the flex diamond is too coarse.
Right.
And it ends up chipping along
Absolutely.
there. So I use this coarse one for that.
Yeah. Ricky, you can also, do you ever use the fine grinding? Like it looks like the coarse one, but it's the finer circles.
That? In finer?
Yeah.
I don't know if I have one that's finer than that.
You do.
I don't think I do.
He does. This is the one. Yeah, overhead. The fine.
I don't have one that looks like that.
Oh.
So in the kit,
we gotta make sure you get that, because if you use the fine for that, like the more aggressive diamond in fine, it won't kill, it won't destroy your turquoise as much, and it won't chip. I'm going to send you that.
Okay, yeah, because that'd be great. But it works for I haven't destroyed.
No, you haven't. They look good. They still got plenty of diamond. But
Yeah,
I'm
but
saying it'll even keep it lasting longer.
I know that these areas come from getting the edges.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
but
it does.
I'm at the very fine now.
Now we're at very fine. Very fine sanding. This is very fine sanding.
There's the curving. No, there's the curving corners and long strokes.
Yep. Beautiful. Beautiful form. I feel like you're like a swimmer, and I'm saying beautiful form, Ricky. Beautiful form. 10. You get 10. What's that 10? Like the Olympics, they give a rating of 10? 10. Look at that. It's gorgeous. I love it. I'm mesmerized. I could watch this all day. So good.
So I'm going to dry it off and take a look.
Yeah.
It's looking pretty good. Now,
That looks really good.
the areas that I need to pay extra careful attention to are opaque areas and dark transparent areas, because that's where the scratches are going to show up the most.
Yep.
And at some point, I reach a part where I go, it's good enough. So I'm going to go ahead and say it's good enough. I'm going to switch over to the 3000. Says step 1.
Yes.
This will be step 1 for lapidary. I'm going to put some
Yep.
water on this. Now, I'll warn all you guys, first time I ever did this one with a class, first student that used it ruined it in 10 minutes.
Oh,
And there, so what Anie told me to do, and I do it, is I do it no pressure, and I turn it on just about as slow as I can make it run. So let's go ahead and.
Yeah. Wow, that's an old one. That's not even stamped slow speed. Yeah, he's had his diamonds for a while, you guys. You see how he lets it I let it rub a little. I kind of like it. Yeah, you know when it gives you that little tug action? Concentrating. Yeah, it's so good. I love these reels. Now, a lot of you guys, since we did enamel last week, I was telling them, Ricky, that they can go to the felt wheel with the jewel tool polishing compound and get a polish. But if you want that ultimate shiny shine, like immaculate, the brown diamonds that you're using now, step 1, step 2, step 3, is the way to go. So focus.
So what I do is I go to this stage and then I use the felt.
You do?
Yeah.
Why don't you go all the way to 50,000?
Because this is cheaper and quicker. Okay, I might be doing, when I'm enameling and think of this as a business, I might be polishing 10 pairs of earrings, so that's 20 pieces.
Right.
I might be doing 6 bracelets, and they're 6 to 8 pieces, so there might be 50 bracelet pieces. I have to figure out how to make this efficient.
Absolutely. I know.
That
looks so good.
Good. So
wow,
if I just go to, hold on, let me get my felt pad.
Yeah, well, this is why, you guys, jewel tool is used in many, many factories around the world. Ricky's not the first one that wants to do this with his pieces. Okay, so here we go. Felt with a compound. Go ahead.
Sauce there. I do this fast speed.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God, I can see it gleaming. Looks good. So you guys, you see there's a few different ways to get to that polish. There's not one like set in stone. Last week I showed you guys how to use the brown diamond. I skipped the step that he used, the 3000, just to save time. But, everyone has their own recipe. When you're just starting out, you guys, I don't recommend you guys skip. Remember, he's been doing this for about 5 years now, and he's gotten to create his own recipe. So,
But I'll tell you, Ani, one of the things that's really great about this is I find the learning curve for my students in a live classroom is one piece. Usually after one piece, they don't need me to watch them. They don't need me to help them. They don't need me to check it.
wow.
So they get it pretty quickly in one piece.
Wow, that brings just a joy to my heart. Oh, I wanted the jewel tool to be easy to use. Oh my God, Ricky. Like, oh my God, that is just gorgeous. Oh, beautiful workmanship. Beautiful. The piece is gorgeous. The polish is gorgeous. It just looks amazing. Now, Ricky, could you have done this with the hand piece in your drum sander?
Well, the hand piece, so there are two different things. The hand piece, I couldn't have done it. With the expanding drum, which is like a genie type of thing.
Yes.
That the thing is, I could have done it. I wouldn't have been able to do the corners as well, but the learning curve literally was several years.
Yeah.
And I can still cut my finger off doing it.
Oh dear, really? God.
I've got a terrible not that darker. That's from the media. That's from your special sauce. But I just slice the crap out of my hand there because those belts when they spin are like a knife. They're scary.
Yeah, we don't like that kind of stuff. Women don't want to cut their fingers. We like our fingers.
I like the safety of it. So
yeah, so you just made this into a joyous project. You know what I mean? Everything about this was fun. So I'm
yes. Yep. And fast. And
thank you, Ricky.
You're welcome. So we just need to talk and figure out a time for next week for our creative boot camp with Ricky, or whatever we want to call it.
I like it. Creative boot camp with Ricky. Ricky, this speaks to my soul. I'm a huge advocate. I'm a woman. I'm a preacher, for crying out loud. I was telling women, think, use your brain, be more creative, be unique, set yourself apart from the rest. This will empower you. I want the women out there and men to be empowered. And if you can help us, give us tools to take us there, by all means, Ricky, there's no better person to take us there.
No, that's my passion. So we'll see what we come up with.
Go to RickyFrank. Well, no, he's going to be on. So he has welcomed. Yeah. So don't worry. Take your classes here. But Ricky is going to be on our show. We'll figure out a time and I'll tell you guys when. He'll be on once a week with us to pop in and give us some great exercises and teach us things.
Build our creative muscles.
Build our creative muscles? Oh, yeah. We love that, Ricky. Yeah. Okay, cool. So I'm excited. So I see everyone likes that. I love the creative boot camp idea, Ellie Grossman says. Yeah. So you know what? It's kind of hard for Ricky. There's a question. How would you get started in enamel working? I know it's hard to tell everyone what they need. To be honest with you, he goes over all of that in his classes. I mean, it's not a quick answer. I know this is not a quick answer.
Okay, so that's a really good question. How do you start?
I know Albert's all full of good questions. I love him.
Okay, so here's how I come to think about what I do when I enamel. And I call it, I love acronyms and little terms to describe what I do. I call it the PAF, my path, and it's prepare, apply, and fire. So the different things that I'm doing when I enamel is I'm preparing my enamel, I'm applying my enamel, I'm firing my enamel. So if you're using 80 mesh enamel, you don't need to do much to prepare it, especially if you're using opaques. If you're using transparents, you want to get the fine grains out because we talked a little bit earlier about transparency and air bubbles.
Right.
Applying it, the easiest ways to apply it are with a sifter or with a paintbrush. And then firing it, am I going to use a torch? Am I going to use a kiln? So that's the PAF of enamel. Then there might be the PAF for foil.
Mm-hmm.
How do I cut the foil? How do I prepare the foil? How do I apply the foil? How do I fire the foil?
Right.
It could be wires if I want to do cloisonne. How do I prepare my wires? How do I bend them? How do I dome them to sit on the piece? How do I apply? How do I figure out where they go? And then how do I fire them? And then how do I do my PAF for my color layers? How do I apply a layer of color over another? And how do I fire a layer of color over another? So the simplest thing to do is to take some copper, take one color, take a sifter, sift a thin layer of enamel, and melt it. Fire it with a kiln or a torch. And what you'll see is the enamel will go through the firing stages of starting to melt, starting to create what's called an orange peel texture where it's not smooth, and then it'll get glossy. So what if I was going to teach myself, I would let go of making anything I like, and I would just keep asking questions. So the next question would be, what if I use different thicknesses of enamel? And I would sift a thin layer and do another piece with a medium layer, and then another piece with a thicker layer, and then a really thick layer, and then fire them all and see what happens. So instead of asking a teacher, how thick can I make it? Now I'm teaching myself, this is what happens when I have it this thickness, this is what happens, and I start to learn things.
Mm-hmm.
So then you're going to start coming into the science of when it gets too thick, it's going to crack because there's something called thermal expansion and contraction. That's science. So then what we do is we put enamel on the backside, and that's called counter enamel. But that's harder to learn on your own, science. So you could go to my enamel channel and watch videos for a week for free, or binge them for a month, or do it for the year, and you can find all about the science, as simple as that. The books are not very good about science principles. They tell you what to do, but not why.
Right.
And if you're lucky, someone like Marilee Ray is great with science. She understands. She teaches very good technique and excellent science. So you may find a good teacher that understands the science, but most don't. Most want to tell you the rules.
Yeah.
So I would say the best way to learn is to come take my class.
I was going to say the same.
Yeah.
Really, you guys, you see this, a simple question gives you this kind of answer. Like when he really needs to give a thorough answer, Ricky is the perfect person to give you a detailed, perfect answer. But when it's a question of, should I do this? Well, he turns the question off to you and says, I don't know, should you? And has you look deep inside you, and brings that aspect out of your personality, which is, that's rare in teachers, just so you know. He really goes beyond just do this, do that, do that. You can read that in a book, like he said.
I think if you're going to try to teach yourself to enamel, you have to think of yourself as a scientist. It's a lot of physics, like even the shape of the metal is a factor in how much it warps.
Right.
There are all these little science details.
Yeah.
And so I actually spent this morning typing up a PDF of 20 different science principles for my students that are in my course this week, so they can print it out and put it on the wall of their studio.
Lovely.
So you need to learn the science somehow. Another good person with science is Tom Ellis at Thompson Enamel.
Yes, I know Tom Ellis.
Yeah, so he's excellent with understanding the science and the how to, especially for some simpler techniques.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, Albert loves the answer. It's a great answer.
Okay, super.
Yeah, 2 websites. So the one website at rickyfrank.com will give you ability to take his classes, and then the other website, the Enamel, what was it? The Enamel channel is where you can view his existing videos and subscribe, but you have a 7-day free trial, which is so
Right.
cool. That's really nice of you to give that. Not everyone does that. So
There's
that's
a
nice.
lot of there's
He's
a lot of
nice.
stuff there. You're not gonna, the other thing is, I have this philosophy. It's not my philosophy, but I believe it. You, you have to do it to learn it. So you can sit there and watch the videos. It's entertainment. Until you do it, it's entertainment.
Well said. It's true. Do it. Just do it.
Yep.
What's the worst that's going to happen?
Right.
Your gold turns black. Whatever.
Right.
Do it again.
You have to internalize the learning, and the internalization comes from those 8 creative mindset skills: observing, asking questions, responding, that whole thing.
That's how you learn, really, Ricky.
That's how you learn anything. That's how you learn anything.
That's why my live shows, they're interactive. People ask questions, they learn right there. This is a way to really get to know your knowledge through your classes. I'm telling you, it's like almost I'm
add that they have to do it in their studio. I would add that they can take your answers or your images, but they have to do it. It's like you can't learn to ride a bike by watching somebody ride a bike.
No, absolutely. I know some people are still a little apprehensive, and they've asked me if I'll do private classes. So I get it. Some people just need that, that one-on-one, or like need to, not in a huge environment, get that special attention. And I know you do that. So that's something I'm looking into.
I'll tell you about that, Anie. Because I read every day about learning and creativity. One of the ways that people acquire skills is through feedback. If you can find a teacher that can model good skills, that's important. But it's important to get feedback from someone that knows what they're doing. So if they can watch you and point out the nuance that you're missing, that's helpful. So those people that are coming to you for the one-on-one classes, in some ways they're very smart, because they can't give themselves feedback.
Well said.
Or the feedback that you can give them.
Yeah, well said. And I'm starting to understand that. So yeah, so I know it's a lot, you guys, to put on these classes. I really, hats off to him. It's a lot of work, a lot of time that they put into these classes. And just me looking into doing this, I'm thinking, wow, it's a lot of work, Ricky. So hats off to you. Bravo. Well worth it, really. Your classes are so well structured. I mean, he was showing us some in-depth stuff a few days ago, and it's just wow. Your content is unbelievable. So Albert is asking, do you go through like a info on what to buy, like a starter kit? Someone wants to just get started, Ricky.
Yeah. So I don't know if I'm just thinking, when I teach my mentoring classes, it's on a platform called Thinkific, and you'll get a link to that on my rickyfrank.com website to register. But you can click on that register link. It'll take you there. If you sign up as a learner in Ricky Frank School, there's actually a free class there called Materials and Tools.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go through my videos. There's actually a free little mini course about here are the tools I use and why I use them.
Wow, fabulous. Did you guys hear that? So Yarrow just posted the direct link to that in the comments.
Okay.
Thank you, Yarrow.
Yeah.
That's good. That's excellent for you to give that. Not too many people do that. Wow, Ricky, you're such a nice guy. I'm telling you guys, I don't know if you guys know him, but he's a really nice guy. Really nice. Really, really caring. You really want them to learn,
And
think.
I want you to be your superhero.
Aw.
That's what I want.
I love that. I love that. I'm gonna steal that.
I don't want you to be my superhero. I don't want you to be like Ricky Frank. I want you to be like your hero.
Wow.
It's hard to own. It's, even for me to say that I want to be my own superhero is a little scary. It's like,
Sure.
what if I'm not? Um,
No, but it's inspiring. I wore a Wonder Woman costume for Halloween and I felt so empowered. Like I have no powers, but just putting that or just giving my mind that idea that I could be a superhero, it just starts getting the mind rolling. So I love that. Be your own superhero. And Ricky's going to be helping us every week and giving us tools to achieve that.
yes,
Okay, sorry, I had to go there.
that's okay. Yeah, I just realized that in classes I always wear my superhero costume.
Yes, that's his tie dye. He's
No, it's
notorious.
not tie dye. My wife makes these, and she's an artist, and she paints them. So
Oh,
they're
she paints them.
so there's drawings and patterns and layers, and they're just amazing. And we
So
actually
did
sell them on my website.
okay, yes. Okay, so did she do the apron in the Yara?
Yeah,
Can you
yeah, she made the apron.
Oh, look, hold on. Look. Oh wait, Yara, I'm not actually on. Hold on. Oh, hold on. UPS is here. 1 second. Yara, can you just zoom in here? So this is when I met Ricky Frank. You guys, where am I? There. So this is the day that I met Ricky Frank back in 2016, Ricky. And this is the look at this beautiful apron you're wearing. Wow. So your wife painted this?
Yeah, that's her hobby at night when she's tired and wants to watch. She likes to watch old. Well, she watches old movies and she watches like the Top Model and all the reality shows that they're contests about creativity.
Yes, like
Oh,
me. I
an
like that.
amazing fiber artist in her own right. She makes amazing felted sculptures, and
Oh,
that's you can find that on my website too. But so she at night when she's tired, she just sits there and watches TV and paints.
oh, that's lovely. That's a nice escape.
Yeah.
Eh, Diana Sheska says, Anie, you're already Wonder Woman. Thank you, Diana. And hi, Marin. She's watching too. And we've got love the shirt and apron. Very cool. Right, Evelyn? Really? So that picture literally was in and then look, this is Ricky showing the jewel tool. Like, you don't understand. When Ricky saw the jewel tool, he had a class going on in Rio. Okay. And this guy already had wanted the jewel tool in his class. So Rio went and got him a jewel tool to put in his class. And that's me over here watching in excitement. I'm like, I'm so excited. He's using the jewel tool. And that's Ricky. Ricky, remember this day?
Yeah, I think that might be Eddie Bell from the Bell family there too. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is. So this was us at Rio. There you go. Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm just showing the picture. So, anyways, so when I was trying to look for a picture for you today, I went back and I was like, wow, it loaded all those pictures when we were at the Rio Grande. So I was like, God, I took a lot of pictures of Ricky. I was so excited to have met you. And what I liked was you connected with like how I thought. And that's not too many people do that. You know what I mean? You really took to it just like this. And I was like, God, in my head, I actually said, damn, he's good. That's what I said. And you really are. And I really admire you. I tell you this all the time, but he's just been amazing. So just whoever's lucky enough to take a class with do it.
Or just
Yeah,
come back next week.
guys, everyone's saying they're totally loving all the vibes you're putting out. Yeah, honestly, this vibe action with Ricky can be a phone call with him. While I'm just talking to him about an order or whatever, and next thing you know, we get into this whole existential. Yeah, he just gets into it, and you're like, wow. Okay, so anyways, so we look forward to seeing you. I'll work out a time frame with Ricky when he'll be on. So this is not the last you'll see of him, and surely not if you want to take one of his classes. So I want to take one of your classes, Ricky. Really, it's amazing.
Great. Well, it's been a joy being here, and it's been very relaxing. So you're a great hostess.
Honestly, I was along for the ride. I was like watching just like with everybody else. You're really good at explaining everything you do, even to the grinding and polishing stage. That's a thing where a lot of people don't do because of what you said earlier, is that the grinding and the polishing states are so tedious, even in metal work. And so you don't see instructors take it full circle all the way through the final piece. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Well, I've thoroughly just loved having a Jules in the studio.
Me too. Yeah, it was so pleasure meeting you, Ricky. I swear, I remember that day like it was yesterday. However, I don't remember saying that, but all I remember telling myself is, "Damn, he's good."
Yeah,
That's all I kept saying, "Damn."
I just love laughing at your question.
So anyway, so everyone's happy. They're thanking us. I even get text messages saying, honestly, I've even gotten text message saying this was a great live. Thank you for doing this. Everything is great. They love it. I mean, so besides the comments there, I'm getting personal text messages.
Super.
So
Okay,
thank you very
I'm gonna
much,
go.
Ricky.
It's time for me to eat dinner now here,
Yes,
and
yes. So yes. So go and enjoy yourself. And thank you again, Ricky. I appreciate it. Thank you everyone for your questions and watching. And I'll see you. I'll wish you guys a wonderful weekend. And we'll see you here next Tuesday.
thanks,
And then
guys.
I'll let you know when he'll be back.
Okay, bye bye.
Okay, bye. Bye, Ricky. That's Ricky.
I don't know how to leave.
Oh, Yara will close the show. So
Okay.
everyone wave. Bye for now, you guys. Mwah, 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 mwah. You are so welcome, you guys. Thank you, Ricky, again. Bye, you guys. Have a great week.